Hello, I'm Jessica, a 30-year-old woman. I want to share a recent experience that helped me through a tough time with my husband and his family. This happened a few months ago, and even though things have calmed down, I'm still working through the emotions. I think talking about it might help me heal. Let's go back 3 years when I made a big decision, marrying my boyfriend Tyler. We met through friends and had 3 great years together before getting married. Tyler was fun, caring, and loving. He came from a wealthy family and had a good job, so he often bought me gifts and showed me affection. We both loved to travel, which made our bond stronger. As we got more serious, my friends were happy for us and praised Tyler. Tyler was very generous, sometimes too much. For example, he bought me a new laptop when I graduated college. I felt uneasy about not being able to spend as much as he did. I'd say, "Tyler, I'm just a college student. I can't match your spending. Let's try to split other costs at least." But Tyler would insist on treating me, saying his friends did the same for their partners. Over time, I got used to it but still tried to contribute as much as I could. After I got a good job, we started sharing expenses more equally and even talked about moving in together. One day, Tyler suggested, "You can move in with me. I inherited my house from my grandpa, so no worries about rent, but we should split other expenses to keep things fair." Even though I was unsure, he reassured me, and we began living together. We agreed to share the financial responsibilities fairly given our different incomes, and everything was going well until I met Tyler's family. They lived far away, and since Tyler was busy with work, I had to host his parents and sister alone. Tyler warned me they could be judgmental but didn't go into details. He suggested I ignore any hurtful comments. I tried to stay positive, but my optimism faded when they arrived. Instead of a warm welcome, Tyler's parents and sister seemed annoyed. This set a tense atmosphere. During our conversations, it was clear they didn't like me. "So you're the woman Tyler has been seeing," Tyler's mother, Martha, said disapprovingly. "I didn't expect to find you in this house. Do you even pay rent?" "No, Martha, I don't pay rent," I explained. Tyler said the house is paid for, but we split all other bills evenly. I hoped this would clear things up, but Martha dismissed it. "Just because the house is paid for doesn't mean you can mooch off him. This is his house, not yours. Remember that for the rest of your life." The conversation got more uncomfortable, especially with Tyler's sister, Teresa, who glared at me more than she talked. When I asked about her life, she mentioned being married to a wealthy billionaire and brushed me off. During their visit, Tyler didn't support me and seemed to side with his family. Gabrielle and Martha kept criticizing me, making the visit hard. They disapproved of my spending on makeup and skincare, saying it was wrong since they thought I didn't contribute enough financially. Tyler's comments didn't help. He'd say things like, "Jessica was a struggling student when we first met," implying I depended on him a lot, which wasn't entirely true. He'd mention how he paid for everything early on because my job didn't cover my taste for luxury. I was shocked and reminded him we now split our bills equally. I explained that I had always lived simply, both before and during our relationship. Any luxury items I had were gifts from Tyler, which I often told him not to buy because they were too extravagant. Tyler justified his spending by saying his social status required him to give fancy gifts, showing that his generosity was more about impressing his friends than caring for me. After his family left, I confronted Tyler about how they treated me. Unfortunately, he brushed it off. "Don't take it to heart, Jessica. They meant well. You're overreacting," he said, dismissing my concerns. Despite my doubts, Tyler proposed 5 months later, and I happily accepted. We planned an engagement party and split the costs. I was running a small side business that Tyler knew about but never asked much about. For me, it was more of a fulfilling hobby than a big moneymaker. When it was time to organize our engagement party, I decided to treat myself a bit, and Tyler supported the idea. We shared the expenses, and I even covered plane tickets for my extended family. However, during the party, the criticisms resurfaced. "You shouldn't have spent so much on this party, Jessica," Martha said. "You're draining Tyler's account before you're even married. At this rate, you'll end up with a backyard wedding. I thought you were financially irresponsible, but it's worse than I thought." I stood my ground, saying the party was extravagant, but we both agreed to it. I paid my share, and it was actually Tyler's idea to include everyone. He insisted and didn't mind the expense. But the criticism continued. Martha accused me of manipulating Tyler into spending too much. Teresa chimed in, saying I should have been more considerate. Frustrated, I excused myself and went to the lawn to find some peace. There, I overheard Teresa and her husband Justin laughing at me. It felt like my engagement party was falling apart, and Tyler seemed unaware of his family's harsh judgments. Most of his extended family thought I was jobless and dependent on Tyler. My mom, noticing my distress, approached me and suggested I reconsider the engagement due to the ongoing mean comments from Tyler's family. After the party, I confronted Tyler about the situation. He brushed it off as a joke and expressed his love, saying financial matters didn't concern him. I told him I wanted to contribute more, especially towards rent, but he dismissed the idea. As we planned the wedding, the stress increased. Tyler's parents continued to criticize me, accusing me of bankrupting their son. Their constant scrutiny made the engagement period very challenging. I made it clear that everyone, including my mom, was helping with the wedding expenses. However, Martha accused me of taking advantage of Tyler and trying to deplete his bank account, branding me a gold digger. I tried to reassure Gabriel, saying, "Gabriel, I'm not asking for any financial help. We can finance the wedding ourselves." But despite my explanations, Teresa criticized the cost of my dress and makeup on the wedding day, even though my mother covered those expenses. The wedding ceremony went smoothly, but at the reception, Martha and Gabriel continued to criticize my spending habits, accusing me of financially exploiting Tyler. Despite their harsh words, I stayed silent to avoid ruining our special day. A few months later, Tyler got a significant promotion at work and wanted to celebrate with a grand family dinner. I was excited for him and decided to cover all the expenses myself. "Tyler, I want this dinner to be extraordinary. I'm so proud of you and want to celebrate your success," I told him. Tyler appreciated my gesture, and I told him my business was doing well. I had a stable income from my job and recently accessed a trust fund from my paternal grandfather. I planned the event meticulously to make it perfect. However, when his family arrived, they were unhappy with the arrangements. Despite positive feedback from other guests, his family seemed to disapprove of the celebration's lavishness. During the speeches, Martha stood up and, with her voice carrying across the room, began criticizing. "I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate my son. He's hardworking and generous, and he really deserves this promotion. Unfortunately, he made a poor choice in his partner. It's sad that he ended up with someone who acts like a gold digger. I wish he had seen her true nature earlier. Then he wouldn't have to work so hard to support her expensive lifestyle." Martha continued, her voice full of regret. "It's clear to everyone here that his wife has been very extravagant. From the engagement party to tonight's dinner, she has almost drained his accounts." Feeling hurt, I took a deep breath and tried to stay calm. Martha added, "Thank goodness we had Jessica sign a prenuptial agreement before the wedding. At least some of his assets are protected." She seemed relieved, saying it was good her son married someone who could at least look like a trophy wife. Tyler agreed with his mother. "I can't even afford to spend money on myself anymore. There's nothing left," he said. He called marrying me a mistake and compared me unfavorably to others. Shocked and frustrated, I finally spoke up. "Do you really think I'm a gold digger?" Tyler's response was cutting. "Your lifestyle is quite damaging to my bank account." Determined to clear things up, I said, "Since you all think I'm a gold digger, let me show you my bank balance." I revealed my financial independence to everyone present. The room fell silent in disbelief. Martha accused, "Did you steal my son's money?" Tyler added suspiciously, "She must have taken it from you." Frustrated but calm, I replied, "I don't need to steal money from your son. This is all from my efforts. I recently accessed a trust fund from my grandfather. I plan to use it to buy a bigger house for us, but now that seems unlikely." Despite my explanation, Tyler suggested we could still buy the house. "It'll be a wonderful gift," he said. But I was firm. "This is not happening. Your family has insulted me for too long, and you've never stood up for me. Instead, you've let them spread lies about me." Tyler tried to downplay the situation, saying I was overreacting. But I stood my ground. "No, I am not overreacting. Everyone here knows what your family has been calling me. They were here when you allowed them to insult me during our engagement party." Finally, I reached my breaking point. I couldn't tolerate the disrespect anymore. "I want a divorce," I said sternly. Tyler tried to plead with me, but my mom intervened. "You never defended my daughter. It's time she ends this toxic relationship, she declared. We left the party, leaving behind a crowd of shocked guests. I was resolute in my decision to leave Tyler and move on. My mom's support was unwavering as we exited, marking the end of a painful chapter in my life. After the confrontation, I went to our home, gathered my belongings, and stayed with my mom for solace. The next day, I contacted my cousin, who was a lawyer, to start the divorce process. With the prenuptial agreement in place, it was straightforward, so I didn't have to share my assets with Tyler. The situation escalated when Tyler and his family came to my mom's house, demanding to talk. My mom stood firm and told them to leave. Tyler kept trying to contact me, alternating between apologies and threats. I saved all the messages, ready to file a restraining order if needed. My mom's unwavering support gave me strength. Tyler even tried to confront me at work, but security escorted him out. I decided to leave my job, as my growing business meant I no longer needed it. I resigned that day, ready to move forward. A week later, I served Tyler the divorce papers at his workplace. He went to my old office only to find out I had resigned. My former colleague said he kept sending flowers and gifts to my mom's house, which we returned. The harassment made me consider relocating. With my mom's encouragement, I found a new house in the next state, a sanctuary away from my ex. As I awaited the finalization of the divorce, the judge ensured it was smooth thanks to the prenuptial agreement. During the 5 months of our separation, I focused on healing and preparing for a new chapter in my life. I settled into my new home and changed my number to avoid Tyler's messages. I heard Tyler's life was falling apart. He blamed his parents for our breakup and faced setbacks at work. His colleagues distanced themselves, and his seniors were unhappy with the negative publicity. His parents spread infidelity rumors, but they didn't gain traction. In contrast, my life began to flourish. I focused on my business and enjoyed my newfound freedom. I started dating again, cautiously, but remained hopeful about finding someone who truly valued me. Though Tyler caused me pain, overcoming the challenges made me stronger. I looked forward to a brighter future, confident in my resilience and aware of what I wanted in relationships and life.
I stared at the 2 pink lines on the pregnancy test, my heart racing as I sat on the cold tile of my office bathroom floor. 5 minutes before the biggest presentation of my career, and here I was, discovering I was going to be a mother. My name is Callie, and this moment should have been pure joy. Instead, it felt like the universe had a twisted sense of timing. Callie, we need you in the conference room. Sarah's voice echoed through the bathroom, making me jump. I quickly shoved the test into my blazer pocket, splashed some water on my face, and straightened my shoulders. Coming. I called back, my voice steadier than I felt. The presentation went perfectly. I barely remember giving it. My mind kept drifting to the test in my pocket, feeling like it was burning a hole through the expensive fabric. The moment it ended, I practically ran to my car, my fingers already dialing Ethan's number. Hey, can you meet me for lunch? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. I know you're busy, but it's important. There was a pause on the other end. I've got a client meeting in 30 minutes. Can it wait until tonight? Something in his tone made my stomach twist. No, it really can't. Please? 20 minutes at Carlos. He sighed. Fine, 20 minutes. I got to Carlos first and chose a quiet corner booth. When Ethan walked in, his architect's portfolio tucked under his arm, he looked distracted. He barely kissed my cheek before sliding into his seat. Everything okay? He asked, already checking his phone. You sounded weird on the call. I took a deep breath. I'm pregnant. His fingers froze over the screen. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The bustling lunch crowd seemed to fade away as I watched his face, waiting for any sign of the excitement I'd felt earlier. Are you sure? He finally asked, his voice carefully neutral. I pulled out the test and placed it on the table between us. Pretty sure. I'll make a doctor's appointment to confirm, but I trailed off, watching him stare at the test like it might bite him. This isn't really the best timing, he said slowly. With the Peterson project just starting and your promotion. Is there ever really a perfect time? I tried to smile, but it felt forced. We've been married for 3 years, Ethan. We've talked about having kids. Yeah, eventually. He ran a hand through his dark hair, a nervous habit I usually found endearing. Now it just made my chest tight. Have you thought about what this means? Your career, our lifestyle, everything's going to change. Of course I've thought about it. I've been thinking about nothing else for the past 2 hours. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. But we can figure it out together, right? Before he could answer, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then stood up abruptly. I need to get to that meeting. We'll talk more tonight, okay? He was gone before I could respond, leaving me alone with an untouched glass of water and a pregnancy test on the table. As I gathered my things, I noticed an older woman at the next table watching me with sympathy in her eyes. "First baby?" she asked softly. I nodded, not trusting my voice. "Don't worry, dear. Sometimes it takes them a while to come around." She smiled kindly. My mother-in-law always said men need time to grow into the idea of fatherhood. My mother-in-law. The thought of telling Lorraine sent a chill down my spine. She'd been dropping hints about grandchildren since our wedding day, but somehow I doubted this news would bring us closer. As I drove back to work, I couldn't shake the feeling that this baby wasn't just going to change our lives. It was going to expose cracks in our foundation I hadn't even known were there. And something about Ethan's reaction told me this was just the beginning. Moving in with Lorraine was Ethan's idea. He said it made sense with the baby coming, but 3 weeks into living under my mother-in-law's roof, I was starting to think it was a carefully orchestrated form of torture. "Callie, dear, are you really having coffee?" Lorraine's voice drifted over my shoulder as I poured myself a much-needed cup. "In your condition?" I took a deliberate sip. "My doctor said 1 cup a day is perfectly fine." She busied herself reorganizing the already immaculate kitchen counter. In my day, we were much more careful. But I suppose modern mothers have different priorities. The way she said modern made it sound like a curse word. I gripped my mug tighter, counting backwards from 10 in my head. "Speaking of priorities," she continued, "Ethan mentioned you're still working full-time?" "Yes, I am." I checked my phone, praying for a work emergency to rescue me from this conversation. "The baby isn't due for another 6 months." "Well, I just hope you're not putting unnecessary stress on my grandchild." She paused, then added with a tight smile, "Or yourself, of course." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Ethan's face appeared on the screen, and I nearly knocked over my coffee in my rush to answer. "Hey," I said, stepping into the hallway. "Please tell me you're coming home for dinner tonight." "About that?" His voice had that apologetic tone I was hearing more and more lately. "The Peterson project is behind schedule. I need to stay late." I leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. "Again? That's the 3rd time this week." "I know, I'm sorry. But this client is huge for the firm. You understand, right?" From the kitchen, I could hear Lorraine humming as she rearranged my carefully organized pregnancy vitamins. "Sure," I said. "I understand." That evening, dinner was excruciating. Lorraine had invited her church friends over, apparently a weekly tradition I was now expected to participate in. I sat through 2 hours of thinly veiled criticism about everything from my career to my choice of prenatal vitamins. "Did you know," one of them said, helping herself to more casserole, "that Lorraine raised both her children without any help? And she still managed to keep a spotless home." Lorraine beamed. "Different times, Margaret. These days, young women want it all: career, family, independence. Sometimes I wonder if they realize what they're sacrificing." "I'm not sacrificing anything," I said, my voice sharper than intended. "I'm adding to my life, not subtracting." The table fell silent. Lorraine's smile didn't waver, but her eyes hardened. "Of course, dear. I just hope you're not spreading yourself too thin. After all, we wouldn't want anything to happen to the baby." Something in her tone made me pause. There was more than judgment there, something darker, almost like fear. I remembered Ethan mentioning once that he'd had a sister, but the topic was strictly off-limits. Later that night, as I was putting away leftovers, I found an old photo that had slipped behind the refrigerator. It showed a younger Lorraine holding a baby girl, her smile genuine and warm, nothing like the carefully controlled expressions I was used to seeing. "Where did you find that?" Lorraine's voice made me jump. She snatched the photo from my hands, her fingers trembling slightly. It was behind the fridge. Is that? It's nothing, she cut me off. Just an old photo. You should get some rest. You're looking rather pale. As she hurried away, clutching the photo to her chest, I heard her muttering under her breath, "We have to be more careful this time. We have to do better." I stood in the kitchen, my hand instinctively moving to my growing belly. For the first time since moving in, I felt more than just annoyed or frustrated. I felt afraid. There was something wrong in this house, something hidden behind Lorraine's perfect facade and Ethan's constant absences. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Ethan. "Don't wait up. Working late again." I looked toward the stairs where Lorraine had disappeared with the photo. Whatever secrets this family was hiding, I had a feeling I was about to become part of them, whether I wanted to or not. The attic was the only place in Lorraine's house where I could breathe freely. I'd started sneaking up there during my lunch breaks, working remotely to escape the suffocating atmosphere downstairs. That's where I found the box. It was tucked behind a stack of old magazines, unmarked except for a small date written in faded ink, 1992. Inside, beneath yellowed newspaper clippings and photographs, I found a hospital bracelet with the name Emma Thompson printed on it. My hands trembled as I picked up one of the newspaper articles. The headline made my stomach lurch. "Local teen's death raises questions about alternative medicine." What are you doing up here? I nearly dropped the box. Ethan stood at the top of the attic stairs, his face unreadable in the dim light. I held up the article. Who was Emma? He crossed the room in 3 quick strides and snatched the box from my hands. "You shouldn't be going through our family's private things." "Your sister." I pressed, watching his jaw tighten. "Ethan, talk to me. What happened to her?" "It's not important." He shoved the box onto a high shelf. "And Mother would be upset if she knew you were up here." "Mother would be upset?" I stood up, anger finally overtaking my caution. "That's what you're worried about? You're never home. You barely talk to me anymore, and all you care about is keeping your mother happy. That's not fair." "No, what's not fair is finding out about your dead sister from a newspaper clipping." My voice cracked. "Why didn't you tell me?" Before he could answer, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then quickly looked away, but not before I caught a glimpse of the name on the screen. Claire. The Peterson Project? I asked quietly. His silence was answer enough. "Who's Claire?" "My colleague." He wouldn't meet my eyes. "She's helping with the project." "Is that all she is?" The attic suddenly felt airless. Ethan ran his hand through his hair. That nervous gesture I once found endearing now made me want to scream. "She's just someone I can talk to," he finally said. "About everything that's happening. The baby, the pressure." "And you can't talk to me?" I wrapped my arms around myself, feeling the slight swell of my stomach beneath my shirt. "Your wife? The mother of your child? It's complicated." "Because of Emma?" I cut in. "Because of whatever happened to her?" His face hardened. "You don't know anything about that." "Then tell me." I stepped closer, forcing him to look at me. "Help me understand why your mother looks at me like I'm going to break something precious. Why you can't seem to stand being in the same room as me anymore." The buzz of his phone cut through the tension again. This time, he answered it. "Claire?" "Yeah, I'll be there in 20. He turned to me, his expression pleading. "We'll talk about this later, okay?" "I promise." I watched him hurry down the attic stairs, leaving me alone with the dust and secrets. As his footsteps faded, I heard movement below Lorraine, probably hovering near the bottom of the stairs, pretending not to eavesdrop. With shaking hands, I reached up and pulled the box back down. If no one would tell me the truth, I'd find it myself. The articles painted a tragic picture. Emma Thompson, 16, died after complications from an herbal treatment. The details were vague, but one quote stood out from a younger Lorraine, defending her choice of alternative medicine. I only wanted what was best for her. Sometimes a mother's love means making difficult choices. Footsteps on the stairs made me quickly replace the box. Lorraine appeared, holding a cup of tea. "I thought you might need this," she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "It's a special blend, very soothing for expectant mothers." I stared at the steaming cup, remembering the articles about herbal remedies. "No, Thank you. I'm not thirsty. Something flickered across her face. Hurt? Anger? Fear? You really should take better care of yourself, dear. For the baby's sake. As she set the cup down and left, her words from the article echoed in my head. Sometimes a mother's love means making difficult choices. I had a feeling I was about to face some difficult choices of my own. At 7 months pregnant, I'd mastered the art of avoiding Lorraine's special tease and navigating around her constant hovering. What I couldn't avoid was the growing distance between Ethan and me, stretching wider with each passing day. I was organizing the nursery, the only room in the house Lorraine hadn't tried to control, when I heard voices from below. Ethan was home early for once. You can't keep doing this. His voice drifted up through the heating vent. She's not Emma. I'm trying to protect her, Lorraine snapped back. The way I should have protected. By what? Sneaking herbs into her food? I saw you this morning. My hand instinctively went to my stomach. The morning sickness that had mysteriously returned last week suddenly made more sense. Those remedies are perfectly safe, Lorraine insisted. If you'd just let me help. Like you helped Emma? Ethan's voice cracked. We're not having this conversation again. Footsteps thundered up the stairs, and I quickly pretended to fold baby clothes. Ethan appeared in the doorway, looking exhausted. Hey, he said, forcing a smile. Need help? I held up a tiny onesie. Where's Claire? Isn't this usually your late night at the office? His smile faltered. Callie. I saw you having lunch with her yesterday, I continued, carefully refolding the onesie. At that little cafe on 4th Street. You looked comfortable. He stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. It's not what you think. Really? Because I think my husband would rather spend time with his colleague than his pregnant wife. I turned to face him fully. I think he's been letting his mother poison me. She's not. That's not what's happening. He ran his hands through his hair. Mother just gets fixated sometimes. Ever since Emma. Ever since Emma what? I demanded. What really happened to your sister, Ethan? Before he could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Meet me at Riverside Park tomorrow, 2 p.m. I can tell you about Emma. Gee. Who's that? Ethan asked, trying to peek at my screen. I locked my phone quickly. Work stuff. 2 could play at the secrets game. Later that night, I lay awake listening to Ethan's steady breathing beside me. My laptop glowed softly as I scrolled through old social media posts, searching for any mention of Claire. I found her easily enough. Claire Martinez, junior architect, recently divorced. There were dozens of photos of her and Ethan at work events, standing just a little too close. But it was another photo that made my blood run cold. Claire at a conference 6 months ago, holding up a herbal tea blend. The caption read, "Amazing gift from my colleague's mom." #blessed by Lorraine. My hands shook as I closed the laptop. Lorraine wasn't just trying to control me, she was grooming my replacement. The baby kicked, strong and insistent. I slipped out of bed and went to the window, watching Lorraine's shadow move behind her bedroom curtains. She was always up late, always watching, always waiting. I pulled out my phone and looked at the mysterious text again. Gee, could it be George, Ethan's absent father? The man Lorraine refused to discuss? Making my decision, I started packing a small bag, just enough for a few days. I couldn't stay here, not with Lorraine's remedies in every cup of tea, not with Ethan's growing closeness to Claire. Not with the weight of Emma's ghost pressing down on all of us. As I zipped up the bag, I heard footsteps in the hallway, that familiar, measured tread. Lorraine's shadow paused outside our door. Sleep well, dear, she called softly through the wood. I'll make you a special breakfast tomorrow. You need to keep up your strength. I waited until her footsteps faded before whispering to my unborn child, don't worry. Tomorrow, we're going to learn the truth. And then we're going to decide what to do about it. The baby kicked again, as if in agreement. Whatever secrets this family was hiding, whatever game Lorraine was playing with Claire, I had to protect my child. Even if it meant burning every bridge behind me. Riverside Park was empty except for an elderly man feeding pigeons. As I approached, his familiar profile made my heart skip. He had Ethan's nose, the same slope to his shoulders. George Thompson looked older than his 65 years, but his eyes were sharp as they met mine. "You look just like her," he said quietly. "Emma, at your age." I lowered myself onto the bench beside him. "Why now? After all these years?" "Because history's repeating itself." He tossed another handful of breadcrumbs. "Lorraine's doing it again, isn't she? The teas, the herbs, the constant watching." My hand instinctively went to my stomach. "How did you know?" "Because that's how it started with Emma." His voice cracked. She was pregnant too. 17, scared, and Lorraine. Lorraine thought she knew best. The world seemed to tilt sideways. Emma was pregnant? Lorraine's natural remedies were supposed to end it quietly. Instead, he closed his eyes. The hospital called it complications from herbal poisoning. Lorraine called it God's will. I called it murder. My phone buzzed. Another text from Ethan. "Where are you?" "Mother's worried." "Does Ethan know?" I asked, ignoring the message. He was 12. Lorraine told him Emma died from a rare illness. He believed her, still does. George turned to face me fully. "But you're different. You see through her, don't you?" Before I could answer, a familiar voice cut through the air. "Father?" Ethan stood at the park entrance, Claire beside him. My stomach lurched at their matched stance, the casual intimacy of their body language. "What are you doing here?" Ethan demanded, striding toward us. "With my wife." "Telling her the truth," George said, standing. "Something you should have done years ago." "The truth?" Claire stepped forward, her hand brushing Ethan's arm. "Ethan, maybe we should." "We?" I stood up, fury suddenly burning through my fear. "There is no we here, Claire. This isn't your family." Actually, Lorraine's voice made us all turn. She stood behind us, elegant as ever in her pressed slacks and pearl necklace. "Claire understands our family better than you ever could, dear. She knows the importance of tradition, of doing things the right way." "The right way?" I laughed, harsh and hollow. "Like you did with Emma?" Lorraine's face went white. "Who told you?" "I did." George moved to stand between us. "No more secrets, Lorraine. No more herbs in her tea, no more pushing her aside for Claire. It ends now." "You don't understand." Lorraine's voice shook. "I'm trying to protect them. The baby, it has to be raised properly this time. With the right mother." The implications hit me like a physical blow. The tease, Claire's increasing presence, Ethan's distance. It wasn't just about control. It was about replacement. "You're trying to get rid of me," I whispered. "Like Emma." "Mother." Ethan's voice cracked. What is she talking about? But I was already moving, pushing past them all. My vision blurred as I fumbled for my car keys. Behind me, I heard George calling my name, Ethan arguing with Lorraine, Claire's attempts to mediate. I made it to my car just as the first contraction hit. "Callie." Ethan reached the car as I doubled over. "You're in labor. Let me help." "Stay away from me." I gasped, gripping the door handle. "All of you, just stay away." Through the windshield, I could see Lorraine approaching, her hand dipping into her purse, probably reaching for one of her special tea bags. The second contraction came harder than the first. As I struggled to breathe through it, one thought crystallized with perfect clarity. I had to get out of here. Not just for me anymore, but for my baby. We weren't going to become another tragic story in the Thompson family history. I started the car, my hands steady despite the pain. In the rearview mirror, I watched them grow smaller, Ethan's desperate face, Claire's concerned pose, George's knowing nod, and Lorraine's rigid stance. The next contraction hit as I turned onto the main road. I had no idea where I was going, but I knew one thing for certain, wherever I ended up. It would be far from Lorraine's remedies and this family's poisonous secrets. Lily came into the world at 3:47 a.m. in a hospital 30 miles from home. I'd barely made it, driving through contractions until a concerned truck driver called 911 after seeing me pulled over on the highway. Doubled over my steering wheel. Now, watching my daughter sleep in the hospital bassinet, I felt both stronger and more vulnerable than I'd ever been. The nurses had asked about family. I told them I didn't have any. "Mrs. Thompson?" A nurse appeared in the doorway. "Your husband is here." Before I could protest, Ethan pushed past her. He looked terrible, unshaven, clothes wrinkled, eyes red. "Callie," he breathed, moving toward the bassinet. "Is she?" "Don't." My voice was raw. "Just don't." He stopped, hands falling to his sides. "I've been looking everywhere for you." Mother's beside herself. Is Claire comforting her? The words tasted bitter. This isn't about Claire. He ran his hands through his hair. "You're being paranoid. Mother only wants to help." "Like she helped Emma?" His face hardened. "That's different. Emma was sick. Emma was pregnant." I struggled to keep my voice down. "Your mother poisoned her with her natural remedies and covered it up. And now she's trying to do the same to me. That's ridiculous. You're not thinking clearly." A small cry from the bassinet interrupted us. Lily was awake, her tiny face scrunching up. I moved to pick her up, but Ethan got there first. "Hello, beautiful," he whispered, cradling her. "I'm your daddy." The sight made my heart ache. Then I saw Lorraine in the doorway, holding what looked like a thermos. "I brought you some tea, dear," she said, stepping inside. "My special postpartum blend. It will help with recovery." My arms tightened around Lily. "Get out." "Now, Callie," she moved closer, "you're obviously exhausted. Let me help." "Help?" I laughed, harsh and hollow. "Like you helped Emma?" "What was in her tea, Lorraine? What exactly helped her recover?" "Mother." Ethan looked between us, confusion clouding his features. "What is she talking about?" Lorraine's face went blank, that perfect mask she always wore. "Your sister was very ill." "Stop lying." I stood up, ignoring the pain. "George told me everything. About Emma's pregnancy, about your remedies, about how you covered it up." "I was protecting our family." Lorraine's mask cracked. "Emma was going to ruin everything with her foolishness." I had to fix it." The thermos slipped from her hands, dark liquid spreading across the floor. Ethan stared at it, then at his mother, horror dawning on his face. "What did you do?" he whispered. "The same thing she's been doing to me," I said quietly. "Check Claire's social media. Look at the tea gifts, the special blends. She's been poisoning me for months, hasn't she? Getting me out of the way so Claire could step in." Lorraine's shoulders straightened. "Claire understands tradition. Family values. She wouldn't question." "My methods," a new voice finished. We all turned to see George in the doorway, holding a stack of papers. Medical records, police reports, toxicology tests, everything you buried about Emma's death, Lorraine. I kept copies. The monitors started beeping as my heart rate spiked. Nurses rushed in, pushing everyone back. "You need to leave," one ordered. "All of you. Now." Through the chaos, I watched Ethan's face as he read the papers George thrust into his hands. Watched him look at his mother with new eyes. Watched Lorraine reach for him, only to have him step away. But it was the thermos on the floor that held my attention, the dark liquid seeping into the hospital tiles like blood. How many cups had I drunk before I realized? How close had I come to becoming another Thompson family tragedy? As they wheeled Lily out for routine tests, I caught a glimpse of Claire hovering in the hallway, her face pale, waiting to step into my life, just as Lorraine had planned. The nurse gave me something to help me sleep, but I fought it. I couldn't rest. Not with Lorraine still out there. Not with my daughter vulnerable. Not until I found a way to end this cycle of poison and secrets once and for all. The police arrived 3 days after Lily's birth. I watched from my hospital window as they led Lorraine away in handcuffs, George's evidence finally bringing decades of secrets into the light. But even as they put her in the patrol car, her eyes never left the hospital building. Never left Lily. That night, as I was preparing to be discharged, the power went out. "Standard generator switch," the nurse assured me, checking Lily's vitals one last time. Nothing to worry about. But when she left, I noticed my phone was dead, and I'd just charged it. The hallway outside was eerily quiet, no beeping monitors, no murmuring voices. Then I saw the shadow in my doorway. "They don't understand," Lorraine said softly, stepping into the dim emergency lighting. "A mother's love means making difficult choices." I pulled Lily closer to my chest. How did you? Claire helped. She smiled that perfect, poisonous smile. She's always been such a good girl. Understands tradition. My eyes darted to the call button, but Lorraine shook her head. The phones are down too. Just for a little while. She moved closer, something clutched in her hand. Long enough to fix this. To make things right. Like you fixed things with Emma? Her smile faltered. Emma was weak. Confused. But I can do better this time. We can start fresh, you, Ethan, Claire. Lily will have a proper mother. I am her proper mother. I backed away, looking for an escape route. You're just like Emma. Too modern. Too independent. She uncurled her fingers, revealing a syringe. This will be peaceful. Quick. Better than the tea. Mother, stop. Ethan stood in the doorway, George right behind him. In the emergency lights, their faces looked ghostly. You don't understand, Lorraine pleaded, turning to her son. I'm protecting our family. Our legacy. By killing my wife? Ethan's voice cracked. Like you killed Emma? Emma was a mistake. Lorraine's composure cracked. I only meant to help her sleep. To keep her quiet until we could handle things properly. But she was so small, so sensitive to the herbs. She was your daughter, George said quietly. Our little girl. She was going to ruin everything. Lorraine spun back to me, raising the syringe. Just like you're ruining everything now. Several things happened at once. Ethan lunged forward. George shouted. Lily started crying. And Claire appeared in the doorway, holding up her phone. It's all on video, Mrs. Thompson. Every word. Lorraine froze. Claire? But you helped me. I helped you get out on bail because I needed evidence. Claire's voice was steady. My sister died from your specialty 3 years ago. Different name, different city, but the same herbs. I've been tracking you ever since. The syringe clattered to the floor. Lorraine's face crumpled, decades of careful control dissolving into raw grief. I only wanted. She whispered, I only ever wanted. To protect us, Ethan finished. But you destroyed us instead. Security guards rushed in, followed by police officers. As they led Lorraine away again, this time for good, she looked back one last time. I'm sorry, she said, but I couldn't tell if she was speaking to Ethan, to Emma's memory, or to herself. Later, after the chaos settled, I sat in my hospital room watching Lily sleep. Ethan stood by the window, his father beside him, both men silent with the weight of revealed truths. Claire lingered in the doorway. I should have told you my real reasons for getting close to the family. Would I have believed you? I asked. She smiled sadly. Probably not. We all believe what we want to about family until we can't anymore. As she left, Ethan moved to sit beside me. I don't expect you to forgive me, he said quietly, but I'd like to try to earn back your trust. For Lily's sake. For our sake. I looked down at our daughter, peaceful in her sleep, unaware of the storms that had raged around her birth. No more secrets, I said. No more poison, any kind. He nodded, and for the first time since this all began, I felt like I could breathe freely. The Thompson family legacy of secrets and control was over. Whatever came next would be our story to write. 6 months after Lorraine's arrest, I stood in Emma's old bedroom, now transformed into Lily's nursery. The walls were a soft yellow instead of the faded pink I'd first encountered. No more pressed flowers or old photographs, just clean lines and new beginnings. The last box is packed, Ethan said from the doorway. We'd decided to sell his childhood home, too many shadows lingering in its corners. I lifted Lily from her crib, her weight solid and real against my chest. Did you check the attic? Dad's up there now. He stepped closer, tentatively touching Lily's cheek. These days, every interaction between us felt like this careful, measured healing. George appeared in the doorway, holding a small wooden box. Found something you should see. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all addressed to Emma, all written in Lorraine's precise handwriting. The dates spanned years after Emma's death. She wrote to her every week, George said quietly. From prison, from the psychiatric facility, even now. Trying to explain, to apologize, to understand herself. I picked up the most recent one, dated just last week. The words blurred before my eyes. I thought I was protecting you, but I was only protecting my own fears. Your child would have been Lily's age now. She's starting to understand, Ethan said, his voice rough. The therapist says it's progress. I placed the letter back carefully. Progress or not, some bridges couldn't be rebuilt. Some poisons lingered too long in the system. Claire had visited yesterday, bringing documents about her sister's case. Other families had come forward, more victims of Lorraine's traditional remedies across decades. The legacy of harm stretched further than any of us had imagined. I have something for you, George said, pulling out an envelope. Inside was a trust fund document for Lily. I couldn't protect Emma, but I can help protect her niece's future. George, we can't. Please. His eyes were wet. Let me do this one thing right. Later, as we loaded the last boxes into the moving truck, I noticed a small package on the front step. Inside was a tea set, not Lorraine's antique china, but a modern one, simple and clean. The note read, 4 new traditions. Claire. I smiled, remembering our last conversation. She decided to start a support group for families affected by medical manipulation and abuse. Turning poison into medicine, she'd called it. Ready? Ethan asked, Lily sleeping against his shoulder. I looked up at the house one last time. Somewhere in the county jail, Lorraine was probably writing another letter to Emma, trying to make sense of where protection ended and control began. Somewhere in the city, Claire was helping other families heal from similar wounds. And here we were, standing on the threshold between past and future. Almost, I said, walking to the garden. Among Lorraine's perfectly manicured roses, I'd planted a small herb garden, sage, mint, lavender. Healing plants growing wild and free. I picked a sprig of lavender, its scent sharp and clean in the morning air. For remembering, I explained to Ethan's questioning look. Not all family traditions have to be toxic. He nodded, understanding flickering in his eyes. We'd agreed to try couples counseling, to rebuild our relationship with the same care we were using to build our new home. Some days were harder than others, but we were learning to grow together instead of apart. As we drove away, I caught a final glimpse of the house in the rearview mirror. The morning sun hit the windows just right, making them flash like signals in the distance. Warning or blessing, I couldn't tell. Lily stirred, her tiny hand grabbing my finger. In her face, I sometimes saw echoes of Emma's photos, the same determined chin, the same bright eyes. But she was her own person, free from the weight of Thompson family expectations. No more poison, I whispered my promise to her. Just growth. The lavender sprig on the dashboard filled the car with its clean, sharp scent, covering the last traces of Lorraine's perfume, of old secrets, of carefully steeped control. We were writing our own story now, one honest cup at a time.
I never thought I'd be the type of person to snoop through my husband's office. 32 years of marriage had given me complete trust in Nate. Or maybe I was just naive. My name is Marley, and until last Tuesday, I was living what I thought was a perfect life. Nate and I had built our plastic surgery clinic from nothing into one of Boston's most prestigious medical facilities. We had everything, respect, wealth, and what I believed was an unshakable partnership. The drawer wasn't even hidden well. I was looking for some insurance paperwork when I noticed the slight gap behind his filing cabinet. A gentle pull revealed a shallow drawer, perfectly concealed unless you were standing at just the right angle. Inside, a stack of letters tied with a pink ribbon sat next to a small velvet box. My hands trembled as I pulled out the first letter. The paper was expensive, the kind that costs more than most people spend on dinner. The handwriting was flowing, feminine, and somehow mocking. "My dearest Nate," it began. "Last night was magical. I can't stop thinking about your hands." I couldn't read anymore. The date at the top was from 3 months ago. 3 months of living my life, sleeping next to my husband, while he was... "Dr. Brooks?" Sarah, our receptionist, knocked on the door. "The Henderson meeting starts in 5 minutes. "I'll be right there," I called back, my voice surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening in my chest. I carefully replaced everything exactly as I'd found it. Muscle memory from years of precision in running our business taking over while my mind spun out of control. The Henderson meeting. Right. We were supposed to be discussing acquiring their smaller clinic, expanding our practice. Nate would be there, probably sitting next to Elle Monroe, his new assistant. Elle, with her perfect 20-something face, and that flowing handwriting I now recognized from countless memos. I walked into the conference room like nothing was wrong, like I hadn't just discovered that my entire life was built on quicksand. Nate sat at the head of the table, exactly where I expected him to be. Elle was indeed beside him, her tablet ready to take notes. "Marley, sweetheart." Nate smiled at me, the same smile that had won me over in medical school. We were just getting started. I took my seat across from Elle, watching as she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Her nails were painted pale pink, matching the ribbon that had bound her letters. The velvet box in the drawer suddenly made horrible sense. I'd seen her admiring a pair of diamond earrings in the window of Tiffany's last month when we'd all gone to lunch together. "The Henderson acquisition," I began, opening my laptop, "represents a significant opportunity for expansion." My voice was clinical, professional. Inside, I was screaming. "Their patient base is exactly what we're looking for," Nate added, leaning forward. "Young, affluent, image-conscious." His eyes flickered to Elle for just a moment too long. The meeting continued, but I was barely present. Instead, I was counting backwards, remembering small moments that suddenly made sense. The late nights at the office. The new cologne. The way he'd started wearing the expensive suits I'd always hated. "I think we should move forward," I heard myself say as the meeting wrapped up. "But I'd like to review the financials one more time." "Always the careful one," Nate laughed, but there was something tight in his expression. "Elle, could you pull those numbers together?" "Of course, Dr. Brooks," she smiled, all perfect teeth and practiced professionalism. I watched them leave together, their shoulders not quite touching. The Henderson acquisition would take months to complete. Months of meetings, planning, and pretending I didn't know what I knew. But that was fine, because now I had time to plan too. I pulled out my phone and called my sister Clara. "Hey," I said when she answered. "Remember when you said I worked too hard? I think it's time I started paying more attention to what's happening in my own house." Clara's house always smelled like cinnamon and disappointment. As I sat at her kitchen counter, watching her methodically wipe already clean surfaces, I could tell she was processing what I'd just told her about Nate and Elle. "Are you absolutely sure?" she finally asked, folding her dishcloth into perfect quarters. "I mean, Nate's always been friendly with his staff. Friendly doesn't usually involve love letters and jewelry from Tiffany's," I replied, my fingers tightening around my untouched coffee mug. Clara sighed, leaning against her pristine countertop. "Have you confronted him?" "Not yet. I need to understand exactly what I'm dealing with first." I pulled out my phone, showing her the photos I'd taken of the clinic's recent financial statements. "Look at these transfers. Every month for the past 6 months, significant amounts moving to an account I've never seen before." "Oh, Marley." Clara's face softened with pity, and something else. Was that relief? "I should tell you. I saw them together last month, at that new wine bar downtown. I thought it was just a work thing, but..." "But what?" My voice came out sharper than intended. "The way he looked at her. I've seen that look before." Clara's hands twisted the dishcloth. "Richard used to look at his secretary that way before." I'd almost forgotten about Clara's own brush with infidelity 5 years ago. She'd fought to save her marriage, convinced Richard to go to counseling. Now they lived in this perfect house with its perfect kitchen, pretending everything was perfect. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Because Nate's been good to this family. He paid for Mom's care facility. He got Jamie that gallery showing." Clara trailed off, looking guilty. I thought maybe I was seeing things that weren't there. The mention of Jamie made my chest tight. Our godson worshipped Nate, saw him as the father figure he'd never had. This would destroy him. "Speaking of Jamie," Clara continued, clearly eager to change the subject, "he's having another showing next week. Nate and Elle are handling the clinic's sponsorship." "What?" The coffee mug slipped from my hands, shattering on the immaculate floor. Dark liquid spread across the white tiles like a stain. "I'm sorry, I thought you knew. Elle's been coordinating everything with the gallery. She seems very invested in Jamie's career." Of course she was. Jamie was young, talented, and connected to our family. Another stepping stone for her ambitions. As Clara rushed to clean up the mess, her phone buzzed on the counter. I caught a glimpse of the screen, a message from Nate. "Need to talk about Marley. You're still in contact with him?" I stood up, suddenly feeling like I couldn't breathe in this perfect kitchen with its perfect lies. "He's worried about you," Clara defended, quickly turning her phone face down. "He says you've been distant, working late, checking the accounts obsessively. So I'm the problem?" I laughed, but it came out more like a sob. "My husband is having an affair with a woman half his age, stealing from our clinic, and I'm the one everyone's worried about? That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean, Clara? Because it sounds like you're choosing his side." "I'm not choosing sides." Clara's composure finally cracked. "But someone has to think about the bigger picture. The clinic employs dozens of people. Jamie's career is just taking off. If this becomes public, it will be because of Nate's choices, not mine." I grabbed my purse, heading for the door. "And by the way, Richard is still seeing his secretary. I saw them last week at the Four Seasons. But I'm sure your perfect marriage can survive another round of counseling." I left Clara standing in her perfect kitchen, surrounded by coffee stains and shattered illusions. As I drove home, my phone lit up with messages. One from Clara begging me to come back, one from Jamie about the upcoming show, and one from an unknown number. It was a photo of Nate and Elle, clearly taken recently, entering a jewelry store together. The caption read, "Thought you should know. Emily Chun, Radiant Transformations." Well, wasn't that interesting? Emily Chen's office at Radiant Transformations was everything our clinic wasn't: modern, minimalist, and intimidating. I sat across from her, studying the woman who'd sent me that photo of Nate and Elle. "I've been watching your clinic's financial reports," Emily said, sliding a folder across her glass desk. "They make for interesting reading." I opened the folder, my stomach dropping at what I saw. Bank statements, transfer records, property listings, all connecting Nate to a beachfront condo in Miami. The down payment had come from our clinic's accounts. "How did you get these?" Emily's smile was razor-sharp. "Let's just say Elle isn't as loyal to Nate as he thinks. She's been keeping her options open." Of course she had. I thought about the way Elle had been handling Jamie's gallery showing, positioning herself at the center of our social circle. She wasn't just after Nate, she was after everything. "Why show me this?" "Because I respect you, Marley. And because I'm about to make you an offer." Emily leaned forward. "Merge your clinic with mine. We'll force Nate out, restructure under the Radiant brand. You'll have complete control of operations." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Jamie. "Emergency at the gallery. Need you both here now." "I have to go." I stood up, clutching the folder. "But we're not done talking about this." The gallery was chaos when I arrived. Water was pouring from the ceiling, threatening Jamie's newest collection. Nate was already there, directing people like he was in surgery. Elle stood nearby, filming everything on her phone. "The sprinklers just went off," Jamie explained, his face pale. "Insurance won't cover water damage because the gallery missed an inspection." "How convenient," I muttered, watching Elle tap away at her phone. She'd been handling the gallery's paperwork, including insurance renewals. Nate appeared at my side, too close. "We need to talk about the Henderson acquisition. Now!" I stepped back, my hand tightening on Emily's folder. "The numbers don't add up," he said quietly. "You've been looking into accounts you shouldn't be accessing. Like the ones funding your Miami love nest?" His face went blank, that perfect surgeon's mask he wore when things went wrong in the operating room. "Who told you about Miami? Does it matter? What matters is you're stealing from our clinic to build a new life with her." I nodded toward Elle, who was now comforting Jamie with practiced concern. "It's not what you think. Really. Because I think you're having a midlife crisis that's going to destroy everything we've built. I think you're so scared of becoming irrelevant that you're willing to throw away 32 years of marriage for someone who's using you to climb the social ladder." "Keep your voice down," he hissed, grabbing my arm. I yanked away, but not before Jamie noticed the tension. He started walking toward us, concern etched on his face. "Everything okay over here?" "Fine," Nate said smoothly. "Just discussing some clinic business." "Actually," I pulled out my phone, pulling up the transfer records. "Why don't you take a look at this business, Jamie? Since you're about to lose your gallery showing thanks to your godfather's girlfriend's oversight with the insurance." Elle's head snapped up at that, her carefully constructed mask slipping for just a moment. Jamie looked between us, confusion turning to understanding. "What's she talking about, Uncle Nate?" But Nate was staring at the phone in my hand, at the evidence of his betrayal. "You'll destroy everything," he said softly. "The clinic, our reputation, Jamie's career." "No," I corrected him. "You've already done that. I'm just deciding whether to let you keep pretending otherwise." I walked out of the gallery, leaving Jamie's questions and Elle's calculated concern behind. My phone buzzed again. Emily Chun. My offer stands. But now I'm adding a condition. Full audit of all clinic finances made public. Your move. I thought about Clara's perfect kitchen, about Jamie's ruined artwork, about the way Nate's hands had shaken when he saw those bank statements. Then I thought about the Miami condo, waiting for its new occupants. I texted back one word. Deal. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone. It's about forcing them to face exactly who they've become. Jamie's studio apartment was his sanctuary, filled with half-finished canvases and the smell of turpentine. I sat on his paint-splattered couch, watching him process everything I'd just told him about Nate, Elle, and the clinic. I should have seen it, he said finally, putting down his brush. The canvas in front of him showed a woman's face, fractured into pieces. I recognized my own features, distorted by his artistic vision. Elle kept asking questions about the family, about the clinic's history. I thought she was just being friendly. We all did. I picked up one of his sketches. Elle's face, captured in perfect detail. She's good at making people see what they want to see. Uncle Nate helped me get my first showing. Jamie's voice cracked slightly. Everything I have was earned by your talent. I cut him off. Nate may have opened some doors, but you walked through them on your own merit. Jamie's phone buzzed, a text from Elle. He showed me the screen. Need to talk about the insurance situation. Have a solution. Dinner tonight. She's trying to damage control, I said. The question is why? What does she get from keeping you on her side? Jamie started pacing, leaving paint-stained footprints on his wooden floor. There's something else. Elle's been asking about the Henderson acquisition, specifically about the property deeds. My blood ran cold. What about them? She wanted to know if they were in the clinic's name or, he hesitated, or in yours personally. Since you inherited the building from your grandmother. The pieces clicked into place. The Henderson property was the only major clinic asset solely in my name. If Nate and Elle managed to push me out before the merger. My phone rang. Emily Chun. The audit revealed something interesting, she said without preamble. Your husband's been meeting with Henderson's board behind your back. They're voting tomorrow on a direct sale to him, bypassing you completely. I ended the call, my hands shaking. Jamie, I need you to do something for me. Keep that dinner with Elle. Find out everything you can about their plans for Henderson. You want me to spy on them? His face showed conflict, the idealistic artist wrestling with harsh reality. I want you to protect your future. Because if they get control of Henderson, your gallery space goes with it. Jamie's expression hardened. I'll do it. But promise me something? Don't let this turn you into someone you're not. I looked at his painting of my fractured face. Maybe I'm already someone different. Maybe that's not a bad thing. Later that night, Jamie called. His voice was tight with anger. Elle let something slip. They're planning to announce the Henderson deal at my gallery opening next week. She said it would be poetic. The old guard making way for the new. In front of all our friends and colleagues, I said quietly. Maximum humiliation. There's more. She showed me the property transfer papers. They're already drawn up, just waiting for signatures. I cannot. He's using my show to legitimize their relationship. To make it seem like the family approves. I thought about Emily's offer, about Clara's warnings, about 32 years of building something just to watch it be stolen by calculated innocence and practiced charm. Jamie, I said carefully, how would you feel about moving your show to Radiant Transformations gallery space? Dr. Chun has been looking for ways to support local artists. The silence stretched for a moment. You're going to war, aren't you? No, I corrected him. I'm going to teach them about consequences. There's a difference. After hanging up, I opened my email and found what I'd been dreading. An invitation to a pre-show dinner at Nate and Elle's new condo. The Miami property I wasn't supposed to know about. I typed 2 responses. One accepting the dinner invitation. The other to Emily Chun, start the audit. And make sure the results reach the Henderson board before tomorrow's vote. Sometimes the hardest part isn't deciding to fight back. It's realizing that the person you're fighting isn't who you thought they were. And neither are you. The Miami condo was exactly what I expected. All glass and modern angles, designed to make its occupants feel important. I sat at the dining table while Elle played hostess, serving wine with practiced grace. Nate watched her move around the kitchen like a proud collector admiring his latest acquisition. The Henderson board was quite impressed with our proposal, Elle said, setting down a plate of something artfully arranged. Especially the part about modernizing their approach. Modernizing. I took a sip of wine, noting how Nate's hand tightened around his glass. Is that what we're calling it? The clinic needs to evolve, Nate said. You've always been resistant to change. The door buzzed, Jamie arriving late as planned. Elle rushed to let him in, leaving Nate and me alone for a moment. Did you really think I wouldn't find out about the board vote? I asked quietly. Before he could answer, my phone lit up with an email from Emily Chin. The subject line made my heart race. Audit complete, urgent. Jamie entered with Elle, his face tight with something more than artistic temperament. He'd seen the results too. Uncle Nate, Jamie's voice was carefully controlled. Elle mentioned you're planning to announce the Henderson deal at my show? We thought it would be perfect. Elle touched Jamie's arm. A celebration of new beginnings. My phone buzzed again, Clara this time. Emergency at Henderson. Board meeting cancelled. Call me. Speaking of celebrations, I set down my wine glass. How long have you been falsifying patient records, Nate? The room went silent. Elle's perfect hostess smile flickered. The audit found some interesting patterns, I continued. Procedures that never happened, insurance claims for ghost patients. All tied to that account in Miami. You had no right, Nate started. I had every right. I'm still your wife, still co-owner of the clinic. Though I suppose that's why you needed the Henderson deal so badly. Can't hide fraud if your wife has access to the books. Elle moved toward Nate, but Jamie caught her arm. Don't, he said. Show her. Elle's facade cracked. She pulled out her phone, handed it to me. On the screen was an email chain between her and someone at the medical board. She'd been gathering evidence for months. Insurance fraud is a federal crime, she said softly. The board would have to revoke his license. Unless I sign over my share of Henderson, I finished. And the clinic. It's not personal. Elle's voice had lost its practiced charm. It's just business. I looked at Nate, really looked at him. The man I'd loved for 32 years was gone, replaced by someone desperate and small. You knew about this? I asked him. Elle understands what needs to be done, he said. The clinic is my legacy. I can't let it become obsolete. My phone buzzed one final time, Emily Chin again. Henderson board saw the audit. They're calling an emergency meeting. Tomorrow morning. Your move. I stood up, my decision made. Jamie, would you mind giving me a ride? I think I've lost my appetite. Marley. Nate called as I reached the door. Think about what you're doing. One phone call from Elle, and everything we built. Everything we built. I turned back. No, Nate. Ibuiltis. While you were chasing youth and validation, I kept our clinic running. And now you and your protege think you can blackmail me with evidence she gathered while sleeping with my husband. Elle flinched. Jamie moved to my side, his artist's hands steady on my shoulder. The Henderson board meets tomorrow, I said. They'll have the full audit, including Elle's evidence. But they'll also have proof of who really committed the fraud. Check your email, Elle. Emily Chin sends her regards. I left them in their perfect condo with its perfect view, knowing tomorrow would change everything. In the car, Jamie finally spoke. What happens now? Now! I watched Miami's lights blur past. Now we see who's really been playing who. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone's future. It's about forcing them to face their past. The Henderson board meeting never happened. Instead, I found myself in the emergency room at 3 a.m, watching doctors wheel Nate into surgery. Apparently, stress and cocaine don't mix well with a man his age. He had a minor heart attack, the doctor explained. We found significant amounts of stimulants in his system. Elle sat across the waiting room, her perfect makeup smeared with tears that looked almost genuine. Clara paced between us like a referee at a boxing match. Did you know? Clara asked me quietly. About the drugs? I shook my head. 32 years of marriage, and I'd missed the signs. Or maybe I'd chosen not to see them. My phone buzzed, Emily Chun. Henderson board saw the toxicology report. They're pulling out completely. I'm sorry, Marley. Another buzz, Jamie. Elle's been talking to reporters. Check the local news sites. The headlines were already appearing. Prominent surgeon's drug crisis. Brooks Clinic under investigation. Each one carefully crafted to suggest widespread problems, not just one man's desperate choices. He'll lose his license, Elle said suddenly. Even without the fraud, this is enough. Isn't that what you wanted? I asked. To destroy him so completely that taking over would be easy? I wanted. Ellis voice craqued. I never thought he'd actually. The doctor returned before she could finish. He's asking for you, Mrs. Brooks. And he's not entirely coherent. I found Nate looking small in his hospital bed, tubes snaking from his arms. His surgeon's hands, once so steady, trembled as he reached for me. I couldn't let it end, he whispered. The clinic, our legacy. I couldn't become irrelevant. So you chose cocaine and a 24-year-old instead? Elle understood. She saw me, really saw me. Not just as. He gestured weakly at himself, this aging man trying to hold on to something. No, I said quietly. She saw an opportunity. Just like she saw one in Jamie's gallery, in the Henderson deal, in every careful step she took to position herself. The audit, he closed his eyes. How bad? Bad enough that our insurance won't cover this hospital stay. The fraud investigation freezes everything. His monitors beeped faster. There's a safe in the Miami condo. Behind the Rothko print. Everything you need to prove it was all me. None of it touched the clinic's legitimate accounts. You're confessing? I'm trying to save what's left. For you. For Jamie. He laughed bitterly. Elle's probably already planning her next move. As if on cue, my phone buzzed again. A video link from Clara. Elle giving an interview outside the hospital. Tears perfectly falling as she described her deep concern for her mentor and her hopes of maintaining the clinic's sterling reputation during this transition. She's good, I admitted. Better than we gave her credit for. Marley, Nate's voice was fading. The safe. The combination. But his eyes were closing, the medication pulling him under. I watched him slip into sleep, this man I'd loved and built a life with, now reduced to hospital monitors and whispered confessions. Outside, Clara waited with coffee and hard truth. The medical board meets tomorrow. Emily Chin says without access to that safe, there's no way to prove the clinic wasn't involved in his fraud. Or that Elle wasn't behind it all, I added. So what now? I looked through the hospital window at Elle, still performing for the cameras. At Jamie arriving with his worried artist's soul. At my phone lighting up with Emily Chen's latest update about the Henderson deal falling apart. Now, I said, we break into a Miami condo. Clara's eyes widened. That's insane. It's illegal. So is fraud. So is conspiracy. So is watching everything we built burn because we played by the rules while they didn't. Sometimes hitting bottom isn't about losing everything. It's about realizing what you're willing to do to get it back. Call Jamie, I told Clara. Tell him to bring his lockpicks. And whatever you do, don't let Elle know we're gone. Breaking into the Miami condo was surprisingly easy. What we didn't expect was to find Elle already there, standing in front of the Rothko print, safe door wide open. I wondered how long it would take you to come, she said, not turning around. The combination was his surgery license number. Predictable, really. Jamie's lockpicks were still in his hand. Clara stood frozen in the doorway. I stepped forward, taking in the scattered papers and empty safe. Where are the documents? I asked. You mean these? Elle held up a USB drive. Everything's here. The fraud, the fake patients, the drug purchases. But also this. She tossed me a small notebook. My insurance policy. The notebook was filled with Nate's handwriting. Detailed accounts of every illegal procedure, every under-the-table deal. Spanning years before Elle ever arrived. He's been doing this for a decade, Elle said. I just made it organized. Efficient. You documented everything. Understanding dawned. You were never after Nate. You were after the clinic. The clinic. Elle laughed, but it wasn't her usual practiced sound. I wanted what you had. The respect, the power to build something lasting. Nate was just convenient. Elle, Jamie stepped forward. This isn't you. The person I knew. The person you knew was a character I played. Elle est composure craquée. Poor little artist's assistant, so eager to learn, so grateful for every opportunity. Do you know what it's like to be invisible? To have talent but no connections. Actually, I held up the notebook. I do. First female clinic manager in Boston. Every bank turned me down for loans. Nate's name opened doors, but I built everything else. Then you understand. Elle's voice softened. Help me take over the clinic. With your experience, my ambition. No, I cut her off. Because you're still playing characters. Still trying to be someone else instead of building something real. Elle's hand tightened around the USB drive. One call to the medical board. Won't matter, Clara spoke up. Because while you were here, getting your insurance policy, I was at the hospital getting Nate's confession on video. Complete with details about how you helped organize the fraud. Elle's perfect mask slipped completely. You're lying. Check your phone, I suggested. The video's probably trending by now. Emily Chun has excellent media contacts. Jamie moved to the windows as police lights began flashing outside. They're here. You called the police? Elle looked betrayed. After everything I could give you? No, I said quietly. You called them yourself. Check your sent emails. Elle grabbed her phone, face paling as she saw the confession and evidence she'd apparently sent to the medical board an hour ago. How? You're not the only one who knows how to play a role, Jamie said. Those drinks we had last week. When I was considering your offer to manage my career. You should really lock your phone when you go to the bathroom. The police were at the door now. Elle looked around wildly, like a trapped animal. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to hand over that USB drive. The police will find evidence of Nate's fraud, but also proof that you tried to stop it. You'll be the whistleblower who helped expose everything. Why would you protect me? Because revenge isn't about destruction. It's about making things right. I held out my hand. Your choice, Elle. Keep playing characters or start building something real. For a moment, I saw her clearly, not the manipulative seductress or the ambitious protégé, but a young woman desperate to matter. Just like I'd been once. The police knocked. Elle handed me the drive. What happens now? She whispered. Now you do what I did 30 years ago. Start over. Build something that's actually yours. I smiled. Maybe start with some art classes. Jamie's a pretty good teacher. As the police entered, I watched Elle straighten her shoulders, ready to play her new role. This time maybe as herself. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's showing them a better way to live. 6 months later, I stood in the newly renovated Henderson Clinic, now part of Radiant Transformations. The morning light filtered through the windows, catching on the piece Jamie had created for the reception area. A mosaic of broken mirrors, each fragment reflecting something different. It's about perspective, Jamie explained to Emily Chun as we toured the space. How the same thing can look completely different depending on where you stand. Emily nodded appreciatively. Like how a betrayal can become an opportunity. I touched one of the mirror fragments, seeing my reflection split and reassembled. The woman looking back seemed stronger, somehow more certain. The first patients arrive next week, Emily continued. The waiting list is already full. Turns out, people appreciate honest marketing more than promises of eternal youth. My phone buzzed, a message from Clara. Richard moved out yesterday. Finally took your advice about not settling for perfect lies. Another buzz, Elle. First art show opening tonight. Jamie's been an amazing teacher. Would mean a lot if you came. The last 6 months had transformed all of us. Elle had taken her plea deal, trading testimony about the fraud for a fresh start. She'd discovered her talent for abstract art, turning manipulation into creation. Clara had found her voice, speaking truth instead of maintaining peace. And Nate, Mrs. Brooks. Sarah, our original receptionist who'd chosen to follow me to the new clinic, appeared at my elbow. There's a delivery for you. The envelope was heavy, expensive, like the paper Elle used to write her love letters on. Inside was a letter from Nate's rehabilitation facility in Arizona. You don't have to read it, Jamie said quietly. But I did. I owed myself that much. Marley, it began. The desert has a way of stripping everything down to essentials. No distractions, no masks, no comfortable lies. I've been thinking about legacy. Not the kind I thought I needed. The awards, the reputation, the desperate grab at youth. But the real kind. The lives we touch, the truth we choose to tell, the strength we find in starting over. You were always the stronger one. I see that now. While I was chasing mirrors, you were building something real. I'm sorry it took losing everything to understand that. The clinic will thrive under your vision. It always did, even when I was too blind to see it. Elle told me about her art show. About how you helped her find her real talent instead of destroying her. That's your true legacy, seeing the best in people, even when they fail to see it in themselves. I won't ask for forgiveness. Some bridges stay burned. But I wanted you to know, you taught me more by walking away than I learned in 32 years of standing still. I folded the letter carefully, tucking it into my blazer pocket. Emily and Jamie watched, waiting for a reaction. The Henderson board meeting starts in 10 minutes, Emily reminded me gently. Actually, I said, I think I'll skip it. There's an art show I need to attend tonight. Jamie's face broke into a smile. Elle will be nervous. She could use some support. We all could back then. I looked around the clinic, my clinic now, built on honesty instead of illusion. Sometimes support means showing people who they can become, not punishing them for who they were. As we walked out, I caught one final reflection in Jamie's mosaic. All of us, fractured but whole, broken but rebuilt. Different, but somehow better. Ready for your next chapter? Emily asked. I thought about Nate's letter, about Elle's show, about Clara's newfound courage. about how revenge had twisted itself into redemption when I wasn't looking. Actually, I smiled. I think this is just the beginning. Sometimes the best endings aren't really endings at all. They're just better beginnings, viewed through fragments of who we used to be, reflecting who we might become. The shrill beep of the heart monitor jolted me from my exhausted stupor. I blinked, realizing I'd dozed off in the uncomfortable hospital chair again. Lily, my 4-year-old angel, was curled up asleep in my lap, her golden curls tickling my chin. "Olivia?" Peter's voice was barely a whisper. I looked up to see my husband standing in the doorway, his face ashen. "Mom's awake. The doctor wants to talk to us." I gently shifted Lily onto the chair and followed Peter down the sterile hallway. My legs felt like lead, weighed down by dread and too many sleepless nights. As we approached Estelle's room, I reached for Peter's hand. He flinched, pulling away. Dr. Patel greeted us with a grim expression. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, I'm afraid I have some difficult news. The cancer has spread more aggressively than we anticipated. At this stage, we're looking at palliative care only. I'm so sorry." Peter's shoulders sagged. I instinctively moved to comfort him, but he stepped away, running a hand through his disheveled hair. How long?" he choked out. "It's hard to say with certainty," Dr. Patel replied softly, "but I would estimate no more than 3 to 6 months." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I steadied myself against the wall, my mind racing. 3 to 6 months. How could we possibly prepare for this? Peter's voice cut through my thoughts. "We need to move in with them. Dad can't handle this alone." I froze. "Peter, wait. We can't just—" "Can't what, Olivia?" His tone was sharp, accusing. "Abandon my dying mother?" "That's not what I meant," I protested. "But Lily, our jobs, we need to think this through." Peter's eyes flashed with anger. "There's nothing to think about. They're my parents. We're moving in. End of discussion." Before I could respond, a weak voice called from inside the room. "Peter? Is that you, darling?" Peter brushed past me, leaving me alone in the hallway. I took a deep breath, trying to quell the rising panic in my chest. This was all happening too fast. I peered into the room, watching as Peter tenderly held his mother's frail hand. Estelle's eyes met mine, and for a moment I swore I saw a flicker of something. Resentment? Triumph? But it vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by a wan smile. "Olivia, dear," she called softly. "Come here, please." I approached the bed, forcing a smile. "How are you feeling, Estelle?" "Oh, you know," she sighed dramatically. "As well as can be expected, I suppose. Peter tells me you'll be coming to stay with us. That's so kind of you, dear. I know it must be such an inconvenience." "It's no inconvenience," I lied, my cheeks burning. "We want to help however we can." Estelle patted my hand, her bony fingers surprisingly strong. "You're such a good girl. I'm so lucky to have you as a daughter-in-law." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Peter beamed at his mother, completely oblivious to the undercurrent of tension in the room. "I'll go check on Lily," I murmured, desperate for an escape. As I turned to leave, Estelle called out, "Oh, and Olivia? Be a dear and bring me some fresh water. This pitcher is simply dreadful." I bit back a retort and nodded, my fingers clenching into fists as I left the room. In the hallway, I leaned against the wall, fighting back tears of frustration. How had my life come to this? Just yesterday, we were a happy family of 3, with our own home and our own lives. Now, in the span of a few hours, everything had changed. We were about to uproot our entire existence, all because of Estelle's illness and Peter's guilt. As I made my way back to Lily, a chill ran down my spine. Something told me this was only the beginning of a long and painful journey. Little did I know just how right I was, or how much I would come to regret the decision to move in with Peter's parents. The moving van rumbled away, leaving us standing in the driveway of Peter's childhood home. I took a deep breath, trying to quell the anxiety bubbling in my chest. This was our new reality now. "Welcome home." Harold's booming voice startled me. Peter's father emerged from the house, his weathered face creased in a warm smile. "Let me help you with those boxes, Olivia." "Thanks, Harold," I said, grateful for his kindness. As we carried boxes inside, I couldn't help but notice how different he was from Estelle. Where she was all sharp edges and thinly veiled criticism, Harold exuded genuine warmth. "Where's Peter?" Harold asked, setting down a box. I sighed. "He had to run back to our place for some last-minute things. He'll be here later." Harold nodded, his eyes crinkling with concern. "How are you holding up, dear?" I paused, unsure how to answer. I'm managing. He squeezed my shoulder gently. I know this isn't easy, but we're glad to have you here. All of you. I felt a lump form in my throat. Thank you, Harold. That means a lot. Our moment was interrupted by Estelle's voice, thin and reedy, calling from upstairs. Harold? Is that Olivia? Send her up here, would you? Harold gave me an apologetic look. Duty calls, I muttered, forcing a smile. I climbed the stairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. Estelle was propped up in bed, looking frail but somehow still intimidating. There you are, she said, her tone impossible to read. I hope you're settling in all right. Yes, thank you, I replied, hovering awkwardly in the doorway. Estelle's eyes narrowed. Well, don't just stand there. Come in. Sit down. We need to talk about how things are going to work around here. I perched on the edge of a chair, my stomach churning. Of course. What did you have in mind? Well, Estelle began, her voice sickly sweet. I know you're used to running your own household, but things are different here. I have certain standards. For the next hour, Estelle outlined a laundry list of expectations and rules. How to do the laundry, what cleaning products to use, what foods were and weren't allowed in the house. With each passing minute, I felt the walls closing in around me. And of course, Estelle concluded, I'll need you to take over my caregiving duties. Harold means well, but he's simply not up to the task. I blinked, stunned. But I work full-time, and Lily. Oh, I'm sure you'll manage, Estelle waved her hand dismissively. After all, isn't that what family does? We sacrifice for each other. Before I could respond, I heard the front door open and Lily's excited voice float up the stairs. Daddy's home! We'll talk more later, Estelle said, effectively dismissing me. I stumbled down the stairs, my mind reeling. Peter was in the living room, Lily clinging to his leg. Hey, he said, barely looking at me. Everything okay? I opened my mouth to tell him about Estelle's impossible demands, but stopped short when I saw the exhaustion in his eyes. It's fine, I lied. Just getting settled. Peter nodded absently, already heading upstairs to see his mother. I watched him go, a familiar ache settling in my chest. Later that night, as I tucked Lily into her new bed, she looked up at me with wide, worried eyes. Mommy, are we going to live here forever? I smoothed her hair, forcing a smile. No, sweetie, not forever, just for a little while to help Grandma and Grandpa. But I miss our house, she whispered, lower lip trembling. I know, baby, I said, fighting back tears of my own. I miss it too. As I closed Lily's door, I overheard Peter and Estelle talking in hushed tones down the hall. I crept closer, my heart pounding. Can't keep this up forever, Mom, Peter was saying. Olivia's going to find out eventually. Nonsense, Estelle hissed. She doesn't need to know anything. Just keep her busy, keep her distracted. I'll handle the rest. I stumbled back, my mind racing. What were they hiding from me? And how much worse was this situation going to get? The acrid smell of burnt toast filled the kitchen as I frantically waved a dish towel at the smoke detector. Lily's eyes were wide with worry, her little hands clasped over her ears. I'm sorry, sweetie, I said, my voice strained. Mommy's just a little distracted this morning. What is that ghastly smell? Estelle's voice cut through the air like a knife. She appeared in the doorway, her nose wrinkled in disgust. Olivia, dear, I thought you said you could cook. I bit my tongue, forcing a smile. It's just a little burnt toast, Estelle. I'll make fresh. Never mind, she interrupted, waving her hand dismissively. I've lost my appetite. Peter, darling, would you mind running out for some proper breakfast? Peter, who had been silently observing the scene, nodded. Sure, Mom. What would you like? As they discussed Estelle's elaborate breakfast order, I felt my frustration mounting. It had been 3 weeks since we moved in, and every day brought new criticisms, new impossible standards to meet. Mommy, Lily tugged at my sleeve, can I have cereal instead? Before I could answer, Estelle chimed in. Cereal? That's hardly a nutritious breakfast for a growing child. Really, Olivia, you should know better. I clenched my fists, counting to 10 in my head. Estelle, I appreciate your concern, but I'm perfectly capable of deciding what's best for my daughter. The room fell silent. Peter's eyes darted between us, a look of panic on his face. Estelle's lips thinned into a tight line. Well, she said icily, I can see where Lily gets her stubbornness from. Peter, be a dear and pick up some fresh fruit for your daughter. Clearly, she needs a better example of healthy eating habits. As Peter left, I turned to Lily. Go get dressed, sweetie. I'll bring your breakfast up in a minute. Once Lily was out of earshot, I faced Estelle. I know you're trying to help, but I'd appreciate it if you didn't undermine my parenting in front of Lily. Estelle's eyes flashed. Undermine? I'm merely trying to ensure my granddaughter is properly cared for. Heaven knows she needs it, what with you working those long hours at the hospital. What's that supposed to mean? I asked, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. It means, dear, that perhaps if you spent more time at home and less time playing nurse, you'd be a better mother and wife. The words hit me like a physical blow. I opened my mouth to retort, but Harold's voice interrupted us. That's enough, Estelle, he said firmly, entering the kitchen. Olivia is doing her best, and she's a wonderful mother. Estelle's face softened instantly. Oh, Harold, I was just trying to help. You know how I worry about the children. I watched in disbelief as Harold patted her hands sympathetically. How could he not see through her act? The rest of the day passed in a blur of tension and barely concealed hostility. By evening, I was exhausted, both physically and emotionally. As I was preparing dinner, Peter cornered me in the kitchen. Can we talk? He asked, his voice low. I nodded warily, following him to the back porch. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the yard. Mom's worried about you? He began. She thinks you're not adjusting well. I stared at him incredulously. Not adjusting well? Peter, your mother has done nothing but criticize and belittle me since we got here. How am I supposed to adjust to that? Peter ran a hand through his hair, looking frustrated. She's dying, Olivia. Can't you just try to get along with her? For me? For you? I repeated, my voice rising. What about me, Peter? What about Lily? When was the last time you stood up for us? He flinched, looking away. You're being dramatic. Mom's just set in her ways. If you just try harder. Try harder. I interrupted, tears of anger and frustration stinging my eyes. I'm doing everything, Peter. Everything. And it's never enough. Not for your mother, and apparently not for you either. I turned to go back inside, but Peter grabbed my arm. Olivia, wait. No, I said, pulling away. I'm done waiting. I'm done trying. If you can't see what's happening here, then maybe we have bigger problems than I thought. As I walked back into the house, I caught sight of Estelle watching from an upstairs window, a satisfied smirk on her face. In that moment, I realized this was far from over. The battle lines had been drawn, and I was on my own. I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing the exhausted woman looking back at me. Dark circles shadowed my eyes, and my once vibrant smile had faded to a tight, worried line. 2 months in this house had taken their toll. A soft knock on the door startled me. Olivia? Harold's voice called. There's a call for you from the hospital. I opened the door, forcing a smile. Thanks, Harold. I'll take it in the study. As I walked down the hall, I overheard Estelle's voice drifting from her bedroom. Peter, darling, I'm feeling so weak today. Would you mind canceling your plans with Olivia and staying home? My heart sank. Peter and I had planned a rare night out, our first in weeks. I paused, waiting for his response. Of course, Mom, Peter replied without hesitation. I'll let Olivia know. I bit back a bitter laugh. Of course he would. I continued to the study, picking up the phone with trembling hands. Hello, this is Olivia. Olivia, it's Dr. Patel. I'm sorry to bother you at home, but we have an emergency situation at the hospital. We're short-staffed, and there's been a major accident. We need all hands on deck. Can you come in? I closed my eyes, torn between relief at escaping the house and guilt over leaving Lily. Yes, of course. I'll be there as soon as I can. As I hung up, Peter appeared in the doorway. Who was that? The hospital, I replied, already moving to gather my things. There's an emergency. I have to go in. Peter's face darkened. But what about Mom and Lily? You can't just leave. I spun to face him, anger flaring. I can't just leave? Like you were about to do 5 minutes ago when your mother asked? That's different, he protested weakly. How, Peter? How is it different? I demanded, my voice rising. Because it's your mother asking, and not your wife. Because her needs always come first. Olivia, that's not fair. No, what's not fair is how you've completely abandoned our family for your mother's whims, I snapped. I'm going to work because people's lives depend on me. What's your excuse? Before he could respond, Estelle's voice called out, Peter, is everything all right? Peter's shoulders sagged. Coming, Mom, he called back, then turned to me. We'll talk about this later. I watched him go, a mixture of anger and despair churning in my stomach. As I prepared to leave, Lily appeared, clutching her favorite stuffed animal. "Mommy, are you going to work?" she asked, her lower lip trembling. I knelt down, pulling her into a tight hug. "Yes, sweetheart, but I'll be back before you know it. Can you be a big girl and help Grandpa Harold while I'm gone?" She nodded bravely, and I felt my heart breaking. This wasn't the life I wanted for her. At the hospital, I threw myself into work, grateful for the distraction. Hours flew by in a blur of emergency procedures and critical care. It wasn't until my shift ended that I checked my phone, finding a barrage of missed calls and texts from Peter. "Where are you? Mom's not feeling well. We need you here. Why aren't you answering?" The last message made my blood run cold. "If you're not home in an hour, don't bother coming back at all." I stared at the screen, a strange calm settling over me. In that moment, I realized I'd reached my breaking point. This wasn't just about Estelle's manipulation or Peter's weakness. This was about my self-respect, my daughter's well-being, and the life I'd worked so hard to build. As I drove home, my mind raced with possibilities. Could I leave? Where would we go? What about Lily? But with each passing mile, one thought became clearer. I couldn't continue like this. Something had to change. I pulled into the driveway, my decision made. It was time to stand up for myself and my daughter, no matter the cost. As I walked towards the house, I steeled myself for the confrontation to come. Little did I know, the worst was yet to be revealed. I stepped into the silent house, my heart pounding. The confrontation I'd been steeling myself for seemed to evaporate in the eerie quiet. Where was everyone? As I climbed the stairs, I heard muffled voices coming from Estelle's room. I paused, my hand on the banister, torn between confronting them and retreating to my room. Then I heard my name. "Olivia doesn't suspect a thing, does she?" Estelle's voice, surprisingly strong, drifted through the crack in the door. "No, Mom," Peter replied, his tone weary. "But I can't keep lying to her. It's eating me alive." I inched closer, my breath catching in my throat. Estelle scoffed. "Lying? You're protecting her, Peter. She'd never understand the truth." "The truth," I whispered to myself, a cold dread settling in my stomach. "Mom, please," Peter pleaded. "It's been 5 years. We got married. We have Lily. Can't we just let it go?" "Let it go?" Estelle's voice turned sharp. "After what that woman did to me? To us?" "No, Peter. Olivia needs to pay for what happened." I pressed my hand to my mouth, stifling a gasp. What was she talking about? "It wasn't her fault," Peter argued weakly. "She didn't know about the affair. She didn't force us to get married." The world tilted on its axis. Affair? Forced marriage? My mind reeled, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. "Oh, please," Estelle sneered. "That little tramp knew exactly what she was doing. Getting pregnant right before your wedding to that nice girl from church. She trapped you, Peter, and now she's going to suffer for it." I stumbled back, my legs nearly giving out beneath me. Pregnant? But we'd only started trying for a baby after we got married. Unless... The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. The rushed wedding. Peter's distance in those early months. The way Estelle had always looked at me with thinly veiled contempt. "Mom, enough." Peter's voice grew stronger. "I won't let you hurt Olivia anymore. This ends now." "Oh, it ends all right," Estelle replied, her voice dripping with malice. "Either you tell her the truth and watch her world crumble, or I will. And trust me, my version won't be kind." I'd heard enough. I turned and fled down the stairs, my mind a whirlwind of betrayal and shock. I burst out of the house, gulping in the cool night air. "Olivia?" Harold's voice startled me. He was sitting on the porch swing, a concerned look on his face. "What's wrong?" I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. How could I even begin to explain? Harold stood, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. "I heard them too," he said softly. "I'm so sorry, my dear. I had no idea." The kindness in his eyes broke something inside me. Tears spilled down my cheeks as the full weight of the betrayal crashed over me. "How could he?" I choked out. "All these years, everything was a lie?" Harold pulled me into a fatherly embrace. "Not everything," he murmured. "Your love for Lily, that's real. And Peter, he does love you, Olivia. He's just weak." I pulled away, wiping my eyes. "Love? Is that what you call this?" I gestured towards the house. "He's been lying to me our entire marriage, Harold. And Estelle, she's been plotting against me from the start." "What are you going to do?" Harold asked, his eyes filled with worry. I took a deep breath. squaring my shoulders. In that moment, I knew there was only one path forward. "I'm leaving," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Tonight, I'm taking Lily, and we're getting out of here." Harold nodded, a mix of sadness and understanding on his face. "I'll help you pack." As we walked back into the house, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Peter appeared, his face pale and drawn. "Olivia," he started, his voice pleading. "We need to talk." I met his gaze, feeling a strange calm settle over me. "No, Peter," I replied, my voice cold. "We're done talking. I'm done with the lies, the manipulation, all of it. I'm leaving, and I'm taking our daughter with me." The look of shock and desperation on Peter's face would have once broken my heart. Now it only strengthened my resolve. As I brushed past him to pack our things, I knew that this was just the beginning of a long and painful journey. But for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. We were finally breaking free. My hands shook as I zipped up the last suitcase. Lily's confused eyes followed my every move, her little brow furrowed with worry. "Mommy, where are we going?" she asked for the third time. I knelt down, cupping her face in my hands. "We're going on a little trip, sweetie, just you and me." A soft knock at the door made me jump. Harold stood there, his eyes filled with sadness. "The car's ready," he whispered. "I'll distract Peter while you slip out the back." I nodded, grateful for his help. As I gathered our bags, a commotion erupted downstairs. Peter's voice, angry and desperate, echoed through the house. "You can't leave. We need to talk about this." My heart raced. We were out of time. "Lily, honey, we need to go now," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Remember our game of super quiet spies? We need to play that right now, okay?" She nodded solemnly, clutching her stuffed rabbit to her chest. We crept down the back stairs, the sounds of Peter and Harold arguing covering our escape. Just as we reached the back door, Estelle's voice rang out. "Peter, she's taking Lily." Everything happened in a blur. Peter appeared at the top of the stairs, his face a mask of panic. "Olivia, stop!" I scooped Lily into my arms and ran. The cool night air hit my face as I sprinted across the backyard, my daughter clinging to me tightly. "Mommy, I'm scared," Lily whimpered. "It's okay, baby. We're okay," I panted, reaching the car. As I fumbled with the keys, Peter burst out of the house. "Olivia, please, you can't do this." I spun to face him, anger and hurt boiling over. "I can't do this. You lied to me for years, Peter. Our entire marriage is based on a lie." "It's not like that," he pleaded, inching closer. "I love you. I love our family." "Love?" I spat the word like poison. "Was it love when you cheated on me? When you let your mother torment me for months?" Peter's face crumpled. "I'm sorry, I'll explain everything. Just, please don't take Lily." For a moment I hesitated. Then I saw Estelle in the doorway, her eyes gleaming with malicious triumph. My resolve hardened. "No more explanations, Peter. No more lies." I opened the car door, securing Lily in her seat. Peter lunged forward, grabbing my arm. "You can't leave. I won't let you." A surge of fear and anger coursed through me. I wrenched my arm free, shoving him back with a strength I didn't know I possessed. "Don't you dare touch me," I hissed. "You lost the right to tell me what to do the moment you betrayed our vows." I slammed the car door and locked it, my hands shaking as I started the engine. Peter pounded on the window, his face a mask of desperation. "Olivia, please. Think about Lily." "I am thinking about Lily," I shouted through the glass. "I'm saving her from growing up in a house full of lies and manipulation." As I backed out of the driveway, I caught a glimpse of Harold in the rearview mirror. He stood on the porch, a lone figure of support in the chaos. I blinked back tears, focusing on the road ahead. "Mommy?" Lily's small voice came from the back seat. "Are we ever going back?" I swallowed hard, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. "I don't know, baby, but we're going to be okay. I promise." As we drove into the night, leaving behind the only life we'd known, a mix of fear and exhilaration coursed through me. I had no idea what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain. I would fight with everything I had to give Lily the life she deserved, free from the toxic web of lies and deceit we'd left behind. The road stretched out before us, dark and uncertain. But for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. We were free. Now, I just had to figure out how to rebuild our lives from the ashes of everything I thought I knew. The small apartment felt like a sanctuary after the chaos of the past few days. Lily slept peacefully in the makeshift bed I'd created from couch cushions, Her little face finally relaxed after hours of tears and confusion. I sat at the rickety kitchen table, staring at my phone. Dozens of missed calls and messages from Peter, each more desperate than the last. But it was the single text from Harold that made my heart clench. "We need to talk. Can we meet?" My fingers hovered over the keypad. Could I trust him? After everything that had happened, a soft knock at the door made me jump. I approached cautiously, peering through the peephole. Harold stood there, looking older and more worn than I'd ever seen him. I opened the door, my voice barely a whisper. "How did you find us?" He held up his hands, a gesture of peace. "Peter doesn't know. I followed you that night. I wanted to make sure you were safe." I let him in, torn between gratitude and suspicion. "Why are you here, Harold?" He sank into a chair, his shoulders slumped. "I owe you an apology, Olivia, and an explanation." For the next hour, Harold poured out everything. How he'd suspected Peter's affair years ago, but chose to believe his son's lies. How Estelle had manipulated them all, using her illness as a weapon. And how he'd watched, helpless and ashamed, as Olivia suffered under their roof. "I should have stood up for you," he said, his voice breaking. "I was a coward, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life." I felt tears stinging my eyes. "Why now, Harold? Why tell me all this?" He reached into his pocket, pulling out a worn envelope. "Because you deserve the truth, and because I can't stand by and watch my son to his family any longer." With trembling hands, I opened the envelope. Inside were documents, bank statements, emails, and a handwritten confession from Peter. The truth of his affair, the child he'd fathered, and the years of deception laid bare in black and white. "He wanted to come clean," Harold explained. "But Estelle, she threatened to disinherit him, to ruin your lives if he ever told you." I felt the room spin. "So he chose money over honesty? Over our marriage?" Harold nodded, his eyes filled with sorrow. "He's not the man I raised him to be, and I'm partly to blame for that." Just then my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "I know where you are. Either you come home now or I'll make sure you never see Lily again. Estelle." Ice flooded my veins. I showed Harold the message, watching his face pale. "She can't do that," I whispered, panic rising in my chest. "Can she?" Harold's expression hardened. "No, she can't, but she'll try. Olivia, listen to me. You need to fight, not just for yourself, but for Lily." I looked over at my sleeping daughter, so innocent and unaware of the storm raging around her. In that moment, something inside me shifted. The fear and uncertainty crystallized into a fierce protective rage. "What do I do?" I asked, my voice steady for the first time in days. Harold squeezed my hand. "We gather evidence, we expose Estelle's manipulation and Peter's lies, and we make sure Lily stays with you where she belongs." As we began to plan, I felt a strange mix of dread and determination. The road ahead would be hard, filled with legal battles and painful confrontations, but I knew now that I wasn't alone. "Mommy?" Lily's sleepy voice called from the other room. "Are you okay?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the fight to come. "I'm okay, baby," I called back, "and I promise you we're going to be just fine." As I went to comfort my daughter, I caught sight of my reflection in the window. The woman staring back at me was stronger, fiercer than I'd ever been. Estelle and Peter had no idea what they were up against. This time, I wouldn't back down. This time, I would win. The courtroom fell silent as I took the stand. My hands trembled slightly, but my voice was steady as I swore to tell the truth. Across the room, Peter sat with his lawyer, his face a mask of regret and desperation. Estelle was conspicuously absent, her illness finally catching up with her manipulations. As I recounted the months of emotional abuse, Peter's affair, and the web of lies that had entangled our family, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. The truth, painful as it was finally coming to light. "And why did you leave that night, Mrs. Thompson?" my lawyer asked. I took a deep breath, my eyes finding Lily in the gallery, sitting between my parents and Harold. "Because I realized that staying would destroy not just me, but my daughter. I couldn't let her grow up in a home built on lies and manipulation." Peter's lawyer tried to paint me as unstable, as a wife who abandoned her family. But with each question, I stood my ground, armed with the evidence Harold had helped me gather. When it was over, I stepped down from the stand, feeling drained but oddly liberated. As we waited for the judge's decision on custody and divorce terms, Harold approached me in the hallway. "Olivia," he said, his eyes brimming with tears. "I'm so proud of you. You've shown more strength and courage than I ever could." I hugged him tightly, grateful for his unwavering support. "Thank you, Harold, for everything." The judge's decision came swiftly. Full custody of Lily was awarded to me, with Peter granted supervised visitation. The divorce was finalized, and I was awarded a fair settlement, including the house that had once been our prison. As we left the courthouse, Peter approached, looking broken and defeated. "Olivia, I'm sorry. For everything." I looked at him, the man I had once loved, now a stranger. "I hope you find peace, Peter, and I hope you can be a better father to Lily than you were a husband to me." Months passed, and life settled into a new rhythm. Lily thrived in our new home, her laughter filling the rooms that had once echoed with tension and secrets. I threw myself into my nursing career, finding strength in helping others heal. One sunny afternoon, as Lily and I planted flowers in our small garden, Harold stopped by. He looked older, but there was a peace in his eyes that hadn't been there before. "I thought you should know," he said, sitting on the porch steps. "Estelle passed away last night." A complex mix of emotions washed over me, relief, sadness, and a final release from the past. "How's Peter taking it?" I asked, surprised by my own concern. Harold sighed. "He's struggling, but I think he's finally starting to see the truth about everything. He's in therapy, trying to become a better man, a better father." I nodded, watching Lily chase a butterfly across the lawn. I hope he succeeds for Lily's sake. As Harold left, I sat in the fading sunlight, reflecting on the journey that had brought me here. The pain, the betrayal, the fight to reclaim my life, it had all led to this moment of peace. "Mommy, look," Lily called, holding up a dandelion. "I made a wish." I smiled, pulling her into my lap. "What did you wish for, sweetheart?" She grinned, her eyes sparkling. "I wished for us to be happy forever and ever." Tears pricked my eyes as I hugged her tight. "Oh, Lily," I whispered, "I think that wish might just come true." As the sun set on another day, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. For my daughter, for the strength I'd found within myself, and for the future stretching out before us. A future filled with hope, love, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her child. The road hadn't been easy, and there would undoubtedly be challenges ahead. But I knew now that I could face anything life threw my way. I had weathered the storm, emerged stronger, and created a safe harbor for Lily and myself. This wasn't the end of our story. It was just the beginning of a new chapter. And this time, I would be the author of my own happiness.
The call came at 3:47 a.m. I remember staring at my phone's harsh blue light, my mother's name flashing on the screen like a warning sign. Nobody calls at that hour with good news. "My name is Lila, and that call changed everything." "He's been arrested," my mother sobbed into the phone. "Your brother, Derek. They're saying he stole money."
Milio.
"From his company." Her voice cracked. "They took him away in handcuffs." I sat up in bed, my sheets pooling around my waist, and tried to process what I was hearing. Derek, golden child, perfect son, successful finance executive Derek, was in jail? The same Derek who'd spent Christmas dinner bragging about his new promotion? "Mom, slow down," I said, running a hand through my tangled hair. "What exactly happened?" "The police showed up at his house an hour ago. Sarah called me." She meant Derek's wife. "They're saying he embezzled company funds. But it has to be a mistake. Your brother would never." I bit my tongue. Would never what?
Lie? Cheat?
Steal? The same brother who'd borrowed my college fund and convinced our parents it was a smart investment opportunity? The money that was supposed to be my future vanished along with his promises to pay it back. "Where are you now?" I asked, already knowing the answer.
Home. I
need you, Lila. Please come." The please caught me off guard. My mother rarely asked for anything, especially from me. Her world had always revolved around Derek's needs, his achievements, his problems. "I'll be there in 30 minutes, I said, even as a voice in my head screamed not to get involved. The drive to my childhood home was surreal. Street lights cast orange shadows across my dashboard as I navigated the empty roads, my mind racing faster than my car. Part of me felt guilty for the tiny spark of satisfaction that flickered in my chest. The other part wondered if this was just another mess I'd have to help clean up. When I pulled into the driveway, Mrs. Thompson from next door was already there, still in her floral nightgown, arm around my mother on the front porch. The sight stopped me cold. My perfectly put-together mother, reduced to a crying mess in her silk pajamas, clutching a wadded-up tissue. "Oh, thank goodness you're here," Mrs. Thompson said, relief evident in her voice. She'd watched our family drama unfold for years from her kitchen window, probably seeing more than any of us realized. My mother launched herself at me, gripping my arms. "We have to help him. He must have had a reason. Derek always has a reason." "Mom," I said gently, "maybe we should wait until we know more details."
No.
"You don't understand. This will ruin him. His career, his reputation." She paused, lower lip trembling. "What will people think?" There it was. The real crisis wasn't that Derek might have committed a crime. It was that people would know about it. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from my Aunt Nora. "Saw the news. You okay? Call me when you can." News? My stomach dropped. I pulled out my phone and there it was, already trending locally. Rising finance star Derek Byrne arrested in multi-million-dollar embezzlement scheme. "Mrs. Byrne," Mrs. Thompson said softly, "let's get you inside. I'll make some tea." As I helped guide my mother through the front door, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the window. I looked exactly how I felt, torn between duty and self-preservation, between family loyalty and the raw truth I'd always known about my brother.
My phone buzzed again.
This time it was a text from an unknown number. "Tell Mom I'm sorry. I need help. Please, Lila."
Derek.
Even now, even after everything, he was still trying to pull strings. I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the delete button, when my mother called from inside. "Lila, where are you?" I took a deep breath and stepped into the house, leaving the message unanswered. Whatever game Derek was playing this time, I wasn't sure I wanted to be part of it. But as I watched my mother's hands shake while she attempted to make coffee, I realized I might not have a choice. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the kitchen in shades of pink and gold. It was going to be a long day, and somehow I knew this was only the beginning. 3 days after Derek's arrest, I found myself sitting across from my mother at our dining room table, pushing food around my plate while she dropped a bomb that nearly made me choke on my green beans. "I want you to go back to college," she said, setting down her fork. "I've been looking at the finances, and with some adjustments, we can make it work." The same finances that couldn't support my education 2 years ago when Derek borrowed my college fund. The irony wasn't lost on me.
"Now,"
I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "In the middle of all this?" She reached across the table, her hand trembling slightly. "I know the timing seems strange, but maybe this is exactly the right moment. We could both use something positive to focus on." I stared at her outstretched hand, but didn't take it. The evening news played quietly in the background, where Derek's arrest was still making headlines. His company had released a statement about unprecedented financial misconduct, and the amount he'd allegedly stolen kept growing with each report. "What about Derek's legal fees?" I asked. "Won't those be expensive?" My mother's face tightened. "Your brother, he made his choices. But I made choices too, Lila. Poor ones. When your father died, I let Derek take control of everything because it was easier than facing reality. I didn't protect you." The admission hung in the air between us. In the kitchen, Mrs. Thompson busied herself washing dishes, pretending not to listen. She'd barely left my mother's side since that first night, probably worried about what would happen if she did. My phone buzzed, another message from Derek. I'd been ignoring them all, but they kept coming, each one more desperate than the last. "He's still trying to contact you, isn't he?" My mother asked, noticing my expression.
"Yeah."
And nothing. I haven't responded." She nodded slowly, then surprised me by saying, "Good." Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. Through the front window, I spotted Aunt Nora's car in the driveway. My mother's face fell slightly. She and her sister had never seen eye to eye, especially when it came to Derek. "I invited her," I said quickly. "We need help, Mom." Real help. Nora swept in like a fresh breeze, carrying a laptop and what looked like legal documents. She hugged me tight, then faced my mother. Evelyn, we need to talk about damage control. The press is having a field day, and Sarah's family is threatening to go public with some stories about Derek that you really don't want getting out. My mother paled. What stories? Let's just say the embezzlement might not be his only creative accounting project. Nora set her materials on the table. And Lila, honey, you should hear this too. It affects you. Mrs. Thompson quietly excused herself, but not before squeezing my shoulder supportively. As she left, I caught a glimpse of reporters gathering at the end of our driveway. They'd been circling like vultures since the arrest. Before we start, my mother interrupted, I've just told Lila she can go back to school. I'm fixing things. Nora's eyebrows shot up. Really? And how exactly are you planning to pay for that? I have savings. The savings you've been sending to Derek every month. Nora cut in sharply. Don't look surprised, Evelyn. I'm your sister. I know about the transfers. My stomach lurched. What transfers? The silence that followed was deafening. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes, but her hands were shaking so badly she had to clasp them together. Mom, I pressed, my voice barely a whisper. What transfers? He needed help, she finally said. After the investment thing went wrong. He was in trouble. Real trouble. I couldn't let him. I stood up, so quickly my chair toppled backward. You've been sending him money? All this time? Well, I've been working 2 jobs just to afford my apartment. Lila, please. How much? Nora answered for her. Almost everything, isn't that right, Evelyn? The life insurance from your father, the retirement fund. I didn't wait to hear more. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door, my mother's pleas following me down the hallway. Outside, the reporters perked up, cameras raising. But I had somewhere else to be. It was time to pay my brother a visit. The county jail smelled like despair and cheap disinfectant. I sat in the visitors' area, my hands clasped tightly in my lap, watching my brother through the reinforced glass. Derek looked smaller somehow, his designer suit replaced by an orange jumpsuit that made his skin appear sallow. I didn't think you'd come, he said, his voice crackling through the phone receiver. Neither did I. I studied his face, searching for any sign of remorse. Mom's been sending you money. He had the decency to look away. I needed help. So did I. The words came out sharper than I intended. When you took my college fund, when I had to drop out, when I was working double shifts at the diner, where was my help, Derek? A muscle twitched in his jaw. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I had a plan. You always have a plan. He leaned forward, pressing his hand against the glass. Listen, there's something you need to know. About Dad's accident.
The door behind me pushed open.
I turned to see Sarah, Derek's wife, storming in with a manila envelope. Her mascara was smeared, and her normally perfect hair was disheveled. You bastard, she spat at Derek. I found the other accounts. Derek's face went ash white. Sarah, wait. Not just the company's money, but your parents' savings? Your sister's future? She slapped the envelope against the glass. And now I find out you've been funneling money to some woman in Phoenix? My head snapped up. What woman? Sarah, please, Derek begged, but she was already pulling documents from the envelope, pressing them against the glass. Bank statements, hotel receipts, a lease agreement. All in the name of Christine Weber. Sarah's voice cracked. 3 years, Derek. While I was planning our family, you were building a life with someone else. The room started spinning. Christine Weber. The name hit me like a physical blow. Dad's accident had happened near Phoenix. He'd been there on business, or at least that's what Derek had told us. He'd been the one to identify the body, handle the arrangements, manage the estate. What did you do? I whispered, the pieces falling into place with horrifying clarity. Derek's eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw real fear in them. Lila, I can explain. I stood up so fast my chair clattered backward. Did Dad know? About Christine? About the money? He was going to ruin everything, Derek said quietly. He found out about the initial embezzlement, threatened to go to the board. I just needed him to listen, to understand. Oh my God. Sarah stumbled backward, one hand covering her mouth. The brake lines. They said the brake lines were tampered with. The room went silent except for the buzzing fluorescent lights overhead. I felt bile rising in my throat as memories flooded back. Derek insisting on handling Dad's car after the accident, refusing to let Mom see the body, rushing through the funeral arrangements. "I'm calling the police," Sarah announced, already pulling out her phone. "They won't believe you," Derek said, but his voice wavered. "There's no proof." I thought of Mom at home, still defending him, still believing in her golden child. I thought of the years of manipulation, the stolen opportunities, the lies that had shaped our family. "Actually," I said, pulling out my phone and stopping the recording I'd been making since I sat down, "there is." Derek's face contorted with rage. He slammed his fist against the glass, making me jump. "You don't understand what it's like," he shouted. "Always having to be perfect, always having to succeed. Dad was going to take everything away." A guard appeared, attracted by the commotion. As they led Derek away, still shouting, I turned to Sarah. "We need to talk to Aunt Nora. She's a lawyer." Sarah nodded numbly, clutching the envelope of evidence. "What about your mother?" I thought of Mom, who had given everything to protect Derek, who had chosen him over and over again. The truth would destroy her. But as I walked out of the jail, my phone heavy with Derek's confession, I realized some destructions were necessary. Some things needed to break before they could be rebuilt. My phone buzzed, a text from Mia. "You okay? Need backup?" For the first time in days, I felt something close to strength. "Yes," I typed back. To both. The recording of Derek's confession sat like a loaded gun on Aunt Nora's desk. We'd been in her home office for hours, the sky outside fading from afternoon to evening, while she made calls and took notes. Sarah had gone home to pack her things, leaving behind the envelope of evidence that now spread across the mahogany desktop like a roadmap of betrayal. "The police want to reopen the investigation into your father's death," Nora said, hanging up her phone. "But they're worried about the timing. Defense could argue the confession was coerced." I stared at the framed family photo on her wall, Dad's last Christmas. Derek standing proudly between our parents, while I lingered at the edge of the frame. "What about Mom? She needs to know." "Your mother's blood pressure has been through the roof," Nora replied, shuffling papers. "The doctor called me yesterday. She's not sleeping, barely eating." My phone buzzed. Mia again. "Found something interesting about Christine Weber. Call me. I have to tell her," I said, standing up. "She deserves the truth." Nora caught my arm. "Lila, wait. There's something else you need to see first." She pulled out an old leather folder. "I found these in your father's safety deposit box. He made me promise to keep them sealed unless something happened to him under suspicious circumstances." Inside were photos, dozens of them. Derek at various ATMs, meeting with shady-looking men, entering hotels. And financial records showing money movements that started long before Dad's death. "He was building a case," Nora explained, "against his own son." My hands shook as I flipped through the evidence. "Why didn't he go to the police?" "Because of your mother. He knew it would destroy her." Nora's voice softened. "He was trying to handle it privately, force Derek into rehab and counseling." The last entry in his journal mentions a confrontation planned for the day he died. The doorbell rang, making us both jump. Through the window, I saw Mom's car in the driveway. "I called her," Nora admitted. "She needs to be here for this." Mom looked smaller somehow as she entered the office, her shoulders hunched against invisible weight. Her eyes fixed on the photos spread across the desk. "What is all this?" "Mom, maybe you should sit."
No.
Her voice was surprisingly firm. "I've been sitting for years. Sitting and watching and making excuses." She picked up one of the photos. "Tell me." So I did. Everything. The confession, Christine Weber, Dad's investigation. With each revelation, I watched another piece of her world crumble. When I finished, she walked to Nora's window and stood there, silent, staring out at nothing. The tension stretched until I couldn't bear it. "Mom, I knew," she whispered. "Not everything, but I knew something was wrong. The way Derek changed after your father started questioning his expenses. The late-night phone calls. The way he insisted on handling everything after the accident." She turned to face us, tears streaming down her face. But I couldn't let myself believe it. Because if I did... Her knees buckled. I rushed forward, catching her before she fell. As I held her, I felt her whole body shaking with sobs. "I failed you both," she gasped. "I failed your father. All these years, protecting the wrong person."
My phone buzzed again.
Mia had sent a photo. Christine Weber's driver's license. The woman in the picture was young, blonde, pregnant. The issue date was 3 months before Dad's death. "Mom," I said gently, "there's more." But before I could continue, Mom's body went rigid. Her hand clutched her chest, face contorting in pain. "Mom." Nora was already dialing 911 as Mom collapsed in my arms, her breathing shallow and erratic. As we waited for the ambulance, I held her hand, watching her struggle for each breath, and realized that Derek's true revenge might not be against Dad or me, but against the one person who had sacrificed everything to protect him. The sirens wailed in the distance as I made a decision. The truth could wait. Right now, keeping Mom alive was all that mattered. But somewhere in Phoenix, a woman named Christine Weber had answers I needed, and I was done waiting for them to find me. The funeral home smelled like artificial flowers and regret. I stood at the podium, staring at the faces of mourners who'd come to say goodbye to my mother, wondering how many of them knew the truth about what had killed her. The official cause was a heart attack, but I knew better. It was the weight of secrets that had finally crushed her. Derek wasn't there. His lawyer had requested temporary release to attend, but the judge denied it. Just as well, I wasn't sure I could look at him without screaming. "My mother," I started, then stopped as my voice cracked. Aunt Nora squeezed my hand from her seat in the front row. "My mother lived her life, trying to protect everyone she loved. Sometimes that meant protecting people from themselves." The words felt hollow, inadequate. How do you eulogize someone whose last conscious moments were spent realizing their entire life had been built on lies? Mrs. Thompson dabbed at her eyes in the third row. Next to her, Mia sat straight-backed, watching me with concern. She'd postponed her trip to Phoenix to be here, though we both knew Christine Weber wasn't going anywhere. In her final days, I continued, my mother learned the cost of unconditional love. She learned that sometimes the people we protect the most are the ones who... The back door of the funeral home creaked open. Sarah slipped in, looking uncomfortable in her black dress. But it was the man behind her that made my blood run cold. Tall, blonde, wearing an expensive suit. He could have been Derek's twin, just 20 years older. Christine Weber's husband. He had to be. My hands gripped the podium so tight my knuckles went white. The resemblance to my father was uncanny, down to the way he carried himself. Suddenly, Dad's business trips to Phoenix took on a whole new meaning. "Lila." Nora whispered from below. "Do you need a moment?" I shook my head, forcing myself to continue. My mother believed in second chances, in forgiveness, in family. The words tasted bitter. But she also taught me, in the end, that there's a difference between forgiveness and enabling, between love and blind devotion. After the service, I watched as Christine's husband slipped out without speaking to anyone. Sarah caught my eye across the room and nodded slightly. She'd seen him too. She knew what it meant. "You holding up okay?" Mia appeared at my elbow, offering a cup of coffee. "Did you know?" I asked. "About him? Is that what you found in Phoenix?" She hesitated. "Christine Weber died 6 months ago. Cancer. But before she died, she left something for you. A letter." The coffee cup nearly slipped from my hand.
"What?"
"It's in my car. I was waiting until after." She gestured at the funeral home. "There's more, Lila. About your father, about Derek. Things that change everything." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I'm sorry about Mom. We need to talk."
D.
I showed it to Mia. He's using the prison phone system. They monitor everything. Maybe that's the point, she said quietly. Maybe he wants a record of what he's about to say. The funeral home was emptying out, mourners filing past with murmured condolences. Mrs. Thompson hugged me tight, whispering, "Your mother loved you more than you know." Aunt Nora was dealing with the funeral director, her lawyer face firmly in place. I looked down at my phone again, at Derek's message. Then at Christine's husband, now sitting in his car across the street, watching the funeral home. At Sarah, clutching her envelope of evidence. At Mia, with a dead woman's letter burning a hole in her purse. Everyone had pieces of the truth. Everyone except me. "I need to see him," I said finally. "One last time." "Are you sure?" Mia asked. "After what he did to your parents?" I thought of Mom's last moments, of Dad's investigation, of Derek's desperate confession, of Christine Weber, who died with secrets I was only beginning to understand. "Yes," I replied, watching Christine's husband drive away. "Because I think our brother might not be the only child Derek Burns Sr. abandoned in Phoenix." The truth was a puzzle, and I finally had all the pieces. I just wasn't sure I was ready for the picture they would reveal. Christine Weber's letter sat unopened in my lap as I waited in the prison visiting area. The envelope felt heavy, like it contained more than just paper. More than just truth. "Miss Byrne?" The guard's voice startled me. "He's ready." Derek looked worse than before. The orange jumpsuit hung loose on his frame, and dark circles ringed his eyes. But when he smiled, I saw our father's ghost. "You got my message," he said, settling into the chair across the glass. "I got a lot of messages lately." I held up Christine's envelope, including this. The color drained from his face. "Where did you get that?" "Her daughter brought it to Mom's funeral. The one you couldn't attend." I watched his reaction carefully. "Our sister, Derek. Did you know about her?" He pressed his hand against the glass. "Lila, don't open that letter."
Please.
"You don't understand what's at stake. What's at stake is the truth. About Dad, about the money, about why you—" The prison doors burst open. Sarah stormed in, followed by 2 police officers and a man in a suit I recognized as Derek's lawyer. "Stop her," Derek shouted, jumping up. "The letter's evidence." "She can't." But I was already tearing it open. Inside was a single photograph and a USB drive. The photo showed Dad with Christine and a teenage girl, all smiling at the camera. On the back, in faded ink, "Family secret, DB. Junior.
Knows.
Keeping quiet costs $50,000 per month." My hands shook. "You were blackmailing Dad?" "He deserved it." Derek's mask finally cracked. "He abandoned them, her and Emma. Paid them off to keep quiet while playing perfect father with us. When I found out, 'So you killed him?' The words felt like glass in my throat. Your own father? He was going to cut them off. Tell Mom everything. I couldn't let him destroy our family." Sarah stepped forward. "That's not why you killed him, Derek. Tell her the rest." Derek slumped in his chair. "Emma?"
She was sick.
"Needed expensive treatments. Dad refused to help unless I came clean about the embezzlement. Said he'd only pay if I turned myself in." The photograph crumpled in my fist. "So you chose murder over confession?" "I chose family." He slammed his hand against the glass. "Everything I did was to protect." "Your inheritance," Sarah interrupted. "Tell her about the will, Derek. About what happens to the estate if your father's second family ever came to light." The pieces clicked into place. Dad's investigation, the missing money, Derek's desperate need to keep everything hidden. It wasn't about protecting anyone, it was about protecting his claim to the fortune. "Mrs. Byrne," the lawyer interjected, "that USB drive contains privileged information. If you turn it over now." I stood up, backing away from the glass. "Emma's dying, isn't she? That's why Christine wrote this letter before she died. She wanted her daughter to have a chance." Derek's face twisted. "Lila, please. That money is our legacy. Our birthright. Don't throw it away on some stranger. She's our sister." The words echoed through the visiting room. And you let Dad die to keep her suffering. The officers moved toward me, but I was already heading for the door. Derek's shouts followed me down the corridor. You can't prove anything. The evidence is circumstantial. Outside, Mia waited in her car. Did you get what you needed? I plugged the USB drive into her laptop. Documents filled the screen, bank statements, emails, photos. A complete record of Derek's schemes, preserved by a dying mother for her daughter's future. Take me to Phoenix, I said quietly. It's time Emma met her family. As we pulled away, my phone lit up with messages from Derek's lawyer, threats, promises, warnings. I turned it off, watching the prison disappear in the rearview mirror. The truth hadn't set anyone free, but maybe, just maybe, it could save one last life. Behind us, storm clouds gathered on the horizon. Somehow, I knew the worst was still to come. The Phoenix summer hit like a wall of heat as I stood outside Emma's hospital room. Through the window, I could see her, 17, pale, hooked up to machines that beeped steadily. She had Dad's eyes. She doesn't know you're coming, her stepfather said, standing beside me. Or about any of this. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Aunt Nora, Derek's been released on bail. Sarah posted it. They're heading your way. My hands clenched around Christine's USB drive. Of course they were. She needs to know, I said, pushing the door open. Emma looked up from her book, confusion crossing her face. Can I help you? My name is Lila Byrne. The words felt strange, heavy with meaning. I'm your sister. Her book slipped from her fingers. What? Footsteps thundered down the hallway. Derek burst in, Sarah close behind him. He looked wild, desperate, a cornered animal. Don't listen to her, he said to Emma. She's lying. I pulled out the photograph. Dad visited you every month, didn't he? Business trips, he called them. Emma's hands shook as she took the picture. How did you? Your mother left evidence. I continued, watching Derek's face. About the blackmail, about Dad's death, about everything. Shut up. Derek lunged forward, but Sarah grabbed his arm. It's over, she said quietly. The police are already reviewing the USB files. Emma's monitors beeped faster. I don't understand. What does this have to do with my treatment stopping? Tell her, Derek. My voice was ice. Tell her how you killed Dad when he tried to help her. How you'd rather see your sister die than risk losing your inheritance. Sister? Emma whispered. But Mom said my father was dead.
He is.
Derek's mask finally cracked. Because he was weak. He was going to throw everything away, our reputation, our legacy, for what? Some mistake he made 20 years ago. Emma flinched like she'd been slapped. Her stepfather moved protectively closer. You're the mistake, I said, stepping between them. Everything you touch turns toxic. You killed Dad, broke Mom's heart, stole my future. All to protect your precious legacy. Well, here's your legacy, Derek. Look at her. Really look at her. For a moment, silence filled the room except for the steady beep of machines. Emma's face, Dad's eyes, Mom's chin, Derek's stubborn set to her jaw, reflected back at us like a mirror of shared blood. I can fix this, Derek said suddenly.
Emma leasing.
Once I access the estate funds. You won't be accessing anything. Aunt Nora appeared in the doorway, holding up a document. Your mother's final amendment to her will. Everything goes to Lila, with explicit instructions regarding Emma's care. Derek's face contorted. You're lying. No more lies, Sarah said, releasing his arm. I'm done protecting you. She turned to Emma. Your mother kept records of everything. The blackmail, the threats, the sabotaged brake lines. Get out. Emma's voice was quiet but firm. All of you. Except. She looked at me. Except my sister. Derek moved toward her, but two police officers appeared behind Nora. This time, when they reached for him, Sarah didn't stop them. You don't understand, he called as they led him away. I did it for us. For the family. No, I said, watching him go. You did it for yourself. You always did. When the room cleared, I sat beside Emma's bed. She held up the photograph, studying Dad's face. "He wanted to help," I said softly. "In the end, he chose you. And now," I took her hand, feeling the family resemblance in her grip. "Now we choose each other." Outside, the Arizona sun painted the sky in shades of redemption. Derek's shouts echoed down the corridor, fading like the last traces of his power over us. In their place, something new began to grow. Something built not on lies and manipulation, but on the truth we'd finally uncovered. Emma squeezed my hand and I squeezed back. Some legacies, it turned out, were worth more than money. 6 months after Derek's conviction, I stood in our family home's entryway, surrounded by moving boxes and fresh paint. Emma's latest scan results lay on the coffee table, cancer-free. The doctors called it. Amazing what proper medical care could do when money wasn't an obstacle. Mrs. Thompson appeared at the door with a casserole, like she had every Wednesday since Mom died. "The place looks different," she said, taking in the changes. But good different. I'd torn down the heavy curtains Mom always insisted on keeping closed, letting sunlight stream through the windows. Dad's old study, where Derek had plotted his schemes, was now Emma's room for when she visited from Phoenix. "Found something interesting while packing up Derek's old room," Mrs. Thompson continued, setting down the casserole. She pulled an envelope from her pocket, yellowed with age, addressed to Derek in Dad's handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. The letter was dated the day before Dad died. "Son, I know about the money. All of it. But more importantly, I know why. The constant pressure to be perfect, to carry the family name, that was my failure, not yours. I pushed you too hard, loved you too blindly, and in doing so, I failed to see the damage I was causing. Tomorrow, I'm going to make things right. With Christine, with Emma, with our whole family. It's time for truth, no matter the cost. I hope you'll understand someday that real legacy isn't about money or reputation. It's about the choices we make when facing our mistakes."
Love, Dad.
The doorbell rang before I could process what I'd read. Sarah stood on the porch, looking uncertain. "The divorce is final," she said without preamble. "And Derek asked me to give you this." Another letter, this one written on prison stationery. "Lila." I read Dad's letter. The one he never got to give me. "The guards let me keep it in my cell, a reminder of what I destroyed, trying to be something I wasn't. I can't undo what I did. To Dad, to Mom, to you, and Emma. But I'm trying to understand it. The therapist here says fear of inadequacy can make monsters of men. I think she's right. Take care of our sister. She deserves the family I never knew how to be. Derek." Sarah shifted awkwardly. "He's different now. Quieter. Sometimes he talks about Dad like he finally sees him as a person." I finished. Not just a standard to live up to. After Sarah left, I walked through the house, touching the walls that held so many secrets. In the kitchen, Mom's recipe box sat open to her favorite cookie recipe, the one she'd make whenever one of us was sad. In Dad's study, now Emma's room, photos of all 3 of us siblings hung on the wall, the past and present merged into something new. My phone buzzed, a text from Mia. "Ready for your first day back at college tomorrow?" I smiled, remembering Mom's last attempt to make things right. The tuition she'd set aside wasn't just money, it was permission to become whoever I needed to be. Aunt Nora arrived later with dinner and legal papers. "The trust for Emma's medical care is set up," she said. "And the house is officially in your name. What about Derek's share?" He signed it over. Said something about earning his own legacy. As the evening sun painted the walls gold, I opened all the windows, letting fresh air sweep through rooms that had held stale secrets for too long. Mrs. Thompson's casserole warmed in the oven, filling the house with the scent of normal life. On my desk lay my college acceptance letter and a photo of Emma at her last hospital checkup, both of us grinning at the camera. Next to it, Dad's letter to Derek and Derek's letter to me. Bookends to a story of destruction and redemption. Some wounds would never fully heal. Some trusts couldn't be rebuilt. But as I stood in my transformed home, I realized that maybe that was okay. Sometimes the broken pieces make something stronger when reassembled into something new. The future stretched ahead, uncertain but full of possibility. And this time, I was ready to write my own story.
Success tastes like expensive wine and spite. I was savoring both when my mother's number lit up my phone screen for the first time in 3 years. The Chateau Lafite Rothschild 2010, a gift to myself for landing the Peterson account, suddenly tasted like vinegar in my mouth. Hey story lovers! Quick check-in, which part of the globe are you tuning in from? Drop your location below. If you're new and like what you hear, join us by subscribing. Now, let's continue. I'm Lola, and I've spent a decade building a life that doesn't include my family. The irony of their timing never fails to amaze me. They only remember I exist when their golden child, my sister Megan, creates another catastrophe they can't handle. Lola, please don't hang up. Mother's voice cracked, lacking its usual polished control. It's about Megan. And Lucy. My 9-year-old niece's name made my finger pause over the end call button. Lucy, the only innocent player in our family's twisted game of favorites. What has she done now? The words came out sharp enough to cut. She's gone. Just gone. Left Lucy with us 3 days ago, said she was running to the store. A sob caught in her throat. Her phone's disconnected. The apartment manager said she cleared out last week. Lucy keeps asking when her mommy's coming back, and I don't know what to tell her. The wine glass trembled in my hand. I set it down before I could give in to the urge to throw it against the wall. And naturally, you're calling me to clean up her mess. Again. You've always been the responsible one. Funny how I'm suddenly responsible when you need something. Where was that recognition when I graduated top of my class? Or when I made partner at 30? The bitter words tumbled out before I could stop them. Please, Lola. This isn't about us. Lucy needs us. There hasn't been an us since you and Dad shipped me off to live with Grandma Eleanor and Grandpa George when I was 12. Because Megan needed more attention. The silence on the other end spoke volumes. We both knew the truth, they'd chosen Megan, always Megan, until they'd effectively orphaned their younger daughter. Your father and I. We can't handle Lucy right now. We're not as young as we used to be, and with your father's heart condition. I laughed, a hollow sound that echoed in my empty penthouse. Of course. And Megan knew that, didn't she? She knew exactly what she was doing, dropping Lucy with you. Because eventually, you'd have to call me. More silence. Then, will you at least come see Lucy? She asks about you sometimes. The knife twisted deeper. I'd stayed away to protect myself, but in doing so, I'd abandoned Lucy to the same toxic environment I'd escaped. My wine glass caught the light, blood-red liquid casting shadows on my white marble countertop. The same color as the dress Megan wore to Dad's 65th birthday party last year, the one I wasn't invited to, but saw pictures of on Facebook. I'll come tomorrow, I said finally. But not for you or Dad. And certainly not for Megan. Thank you, Lola. We're at. I remember the address, Mother. Some things you can't forget, no matter how hard you try. I ended the call and stared at my reflection in the window. The city lights blurred behind my image, creating a halo effect that made me look like I was burning. Maybe I was. 3 years of carefully constructed peace, shattered by one phone call. But this time would be different. This time, I wasn't the powerless 12-year-old they could push aside. This time, I had resources, influence, and most importantly, nothing left to lose. I picked up my wine glass and raised it to my reflection. Well, Megan, I whispered, you finally did it. You finally gave me the perfect reason to destroy you. The wine tasted sweet again. The familiar crunch of gravel under my tires felt like bones breaking. Our family home hadn't changed, same peeling white paint, same crooked shutters, same suffocating air of disappointment. Mother stood on the porch, wearing her favorite pearl necklace like armor. "You didn't have to dress up," she said, eyeing my Armani suit. "It's just family." "This isn't a family reunion, Mother. This is a crisis management meeting." I brushed past her, the scent of her signature Chanel making my stomach turn. "Where's Lucy?" "Upstairs in Megan's old room." She wrung her hands. "She's been so quiet." Of course they'd put her in Megan's room. The shrine to the golden child, preserved like a museum exhibit. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my heels striking each step like a judge's gavel. Lucy sat cross-legged on Megan's old bed, surrounded by teenage photos of her mother. Small, pale, drowning in an oversized sweater I recognized as one of Megan's cast-offs. She looked up, and for a moment, I saw myself at 12, lost, confused, wondering why I wasn't enough. "Aunt Lola." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Hey, kiddo." I kept my distance, not wanting to spook her. "Rough week?" She nodded, clutching a photo frame. "They keep saying Mom will come back, but..." Her lower lip trembled. "She packed all our stuff last week. Said we were moving somewhere better. Then she brought me here and..." The rage I'd been containing threatened to explode. Megan hadn't just abandoned her daughter, she'd planned it, calculated it. Executed it with the same precision she'd used to manipulate our family for years. "Lucy, would you like to?" "There you are." Father's voice boomed from the doorway. "Still making dramatic entrances, I see." I turned slowly, meeting his gaze. He'd aged, but his eyes still held that mixture of disappointment and dismissal I remembered so well. "Hello, Father." "Still making excuses for Megan, I see. Now, Lola, you don't understand the pressure she's been under." "Pressure?" I laughed, sharp and cold. "Like the pressure of raising a child alone. The pressure of maintaining a job. Or just the pressure of basic human decency. Your sister is gone." I cut him off. "Again. And instead of acknowledging that she's abandoned her child, you're standing there defending her. Some things never change." Mother appeared behind him, clutching her pearls. "We just need to give her time. She always comes back. And that makes it okay." I gestured to Lucy, who had shrunk further into herself. "Look at her. Really look. Does she look like a child who just needs to give her mother time?" They both glanced at Lucy, then quickly away, the same way they used to look at me. Like my pain was an inconvenience to their perfect family narrative. "We've been thinking," Mother said carefully, "perhaps Lucy could stay with Eleanor and George for a while. They did such a good job with you." The words hit like a slap. "You mean like when you shipped me off because Megan needed more attention? Because dealing with 2 children was too much work? That's not fair." "No, what's not fair is history repeating itself." I moved to stand between them and Lucy. "But this time, it's going to be different." Father's face darkened. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm telling you what's going to happen. Lucy's coming home with me." The silence that followed was deafening. Lucy's head snapped up, hope and fear warring in her eyes. "You can't," Mother started. "I can, and I will. Unless you prefer I contact Child Protective Services. I'm sure they'd be very interested in how Megan abandoned her daughter after systematically emptying their apartment." Father stepped forward, his authority card ready to play. "Now listen here." "No, you listen." I pulled out my phone. "One call. That's all it takes. Your choice. They exchanged glances, the same silent communication I remembered from childhood, the weighing of options. The calculation of what would cause the least damage to their precious reputation. Finally, Mother nodded stiffly. Perhaps. Perhaps it would be best. Just until Megan returns. Of course, I smiled, all teeth and triumph. Just until Megan returns. Behind me, Lucy released a shaky breath. I didn't turn around. I couldn't let her see the darkness in my eyes, the satisfaction of finally having the upper hand. Because Megan wasn't coming back. Not until I was ready for her to face what she'd done, to Lucy, to me, to all of us. And when that time came, I'd be ready. Lucy's bedroom in my penthouse still had that new paint smell when I found the first letter. 3 days of living together, and already the secrets were surfacing, hidden between the clothes Megan had packed for her daughter. I thought you might want to read this, Lucy said, holding out a crumpled envelope. Her small fingers trembled. Mom wrote it before she left. The paper felt like poison in my hands. Megan's flowing script covered both sides, a masterpiece of manipulation addressed to our parents. They're going to take everything from me, I read aloud, my voice growing colder with each word. Lucy's trust fund, my inheritance, all of it. I have to disappear for a while, just until I can fix this. Don't let them turn Lucy against me. Lucy hugged herself, drowning in one of my old Harvard sweatshirts. What trust fund? I folded the letter carefully, my mind racing. When did you last see Grandma Eleanor and Grandpa George? Never. Lucy's answer hit like a sledgehammer. Mom always said they didn't want to see us. That they were mad at her for having me so young. The laugh that escaped me wasn't kind. Of course she did. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through recent calls. Lucy, how would you like to meet them today? Her eyes widened. Really? Really? But first. I dialed my private investigator. Marcus. I need everything you can find on my sister's finances for the past 9 years. Focus on any accounts in Lucy's name. Eleanor and George's house smelled like cinnamon and safety, just as it had when I was 12. Lucy pressed against my side as we walked up the familiar path, her grip on my hand almost painful. Lola. Eleanor appeared in the doorway, her silver hair gleaming in the afternoon light. Her eyes fixed on Lucy, and tears welled immediately. Oh my God. Surprise, I said dryly. Meet your great-granddaughter. The one Megan told you didn't want to know you. George appeared behind his wife, his weathered face darkening with understanding. Come inside, both of you. There's something you need to see. In their study, George pulled out a thick folder. We've been trying to reach Megan for years. After Lucy was born, we set up a trust fund for her education. Your grandfather and I both come from old money, Lola. You know this. I nodded. My own trust fund had helped build my consulting firm. We did the same for Lucy, Eleanor continued, her voice tight. But every time we tried to contact Megan, she'd moved. Changed numbers. The lawyers couldn't find her. How much? The question burned my throat. George named a figure that made my blood freeze. It becomes accessible when Lucy turns 18, or in case of emergency, like abandonment by a parent. Lucy's grip on my hand tightened. Is that why Mom left? Because of money. No, sweetheart, I said, the pieces finally clicking into place. She left because she couldn't access it. But I bet she's been trying. Eleanor moved to her desk, pulling out more papers. The trust requires annual audits. Last month, we discovered someone tried to forge documents claiming Lucy was living with a legal guardian, your mother, Lola. The signatures were obviously fake. When was this? 3 weeks ago. The timeline aligned perfectly. Megan's disappearance, Lucy's carefully packed bags, the letter meant to manipulate our parents into compliance. She'd tried to steal Lucy's future and failed. I have copies of everything, George said quietly. Including proof that Megan attempted fraud. Lucy's small voice cut through the tension. What happens to me now? I knelt before her, seeing my own childhood pain reflected in her eyes. That depends on you, kiddo. But I promise you one thing, your mother won't get to hurt you again. Or take my money. No. I brushed her hair back, my voice hardening. She won't take anything else from you. Eleanor and George exchanged looks loaded with understanding. They'd watched me rebuild myself after my family's betrayal. Now they'd help me protect Lucy from the same fate. My phone buzzed, Marcus, with preliminary findings. The message made my lips curl into a predatory smile. Lucy, I said softly, how about we get some ice cream with your great-grandparents? We have 18 years of memories to start making up for. And while we did that, I'd start building the trap that would ensure Megan could never harm her daughter again. Because some debts can only be paid in revenge, served cold and calculated, with compound interest. Marcus's report landed in my inbox at 3 in the morning, its contents burning through my carefully constructed plans like acid. I stared at my laptop screen, the glow casting shadows across my home office while Lucy slept down the hall. You're sure about this? I asked during our emergency video call. Marcus nodded, his tired face serious. 6 different identities in the past 9 years. Each time, she'd establish credit, take out loans using Lucy's social security number, then vanish. The pattern's consistent. And the most recent. 2 weeks before she left Lucy with your parents. She took out a $100,000 loan using forged guardianship papers. The money's already gone. I closed my eyes, remembering Lucy's threadbare clothes, the way she'd marveled at having her own bathroom in my penthouse. Where did it go? That's the interesting part. Marcus's typing echoed through the speakers. Wire transfers to an offshore account, then scattered withdrawals across 3 states. But here's what caught my attention, there's a pattern to her movements. She's not running away. She's circling back. My phone buzzed, a text from Mother, Megan called. Says she's sorry. Wants to make things right. Of course she did. The trust fund fraud had failed, but Lucy was still her meal ticket. I switched off my phone without responding. A small sound at the door made me freeze. Lucy stood there in her oversized pajamas, holding the stuffed rabbit Eleanor had given her. I had a bad dream. I closed the laptop. Want to talk about it? She patted over, climbing into my lap like she belonged there. Maybe she did. Mom came back. She was angry that I told you about the letter. She said I ruined everything. My arms tightened around her. Lucy, look at me. Your mother. A crash downstairs cut me off. The security system hadn't chimed, which meant whoever entered had the code. Only 5 people had that code, and 3 of them were asleep across town. Stay here, I whispered, moving Lucy behind my desk. Lock the door after me. Don't open it unless you hear me say, Harvard sweater. The hallway was dark, but I knew every inch of my home. I moved silently, following the sound of someone rummaging through my kitchen. The spare key was always under the rose bush, Megan's voice drifted up. Some things never change, little sister. I flicked on the lights. She stood at my kitchen island, looking expensive in a way that made my blood boil. Designer clothes bought with stolen money, Lucy's money. You look well for someone who's been on the run, I said coldly. Not running. Strategic retreat. She smiled, the same smile that had charmed our parents for decades. Where's my daughter? Safe. Unlike her social security number. Her smile flickered. I don't know what you're talking about. 6 identities, Megan. 6 cities where you destroyed Lucy's future before she could even have one. Did you think no one would find out? You always were dramatic. She waved dismissively. I did what I had to do. Lucy understands. Lucy understands that her mother used her as a human credit card. My voice could have frozen hell. She understands that while she wore second-hand clothes and went hungry, you were living like royalty on stolen money. I'm her mother. You're a thief. And now you're a trespasser. I pulled out my phone. Leave, or I call the police. Your choice. She moved closer, dropping her voice. Mother and father won't let you keep her. They know I'm the better parent. I just need time to. To what? Steal more of her money. Forge more documents. I laughed harshly. Eleanor and George know everything, Megan. The trust fund fraud, the loans, all of it. You've lost. The mask cracked. For a moment, I saw the real Megan, desperate, cornered, dangerous. You bitch. You've always been jealous. Aunt Lola. Lucy's voice from the stairs made us both turn. She stood there, small but straight-backed, clutching her rabbit. I called the police. They're on their way. Megan's face contorted. Lucy, baby, you don't understand. I understand that you stole from me. Lucy's voice shook but held firm. And I want you to leave. The sirens in the distance made Megan's decision for her. She grabbed her bag, pausing at the door. This isn't over. No, I agreed, watching her flee into the night. It's just beginning. Lucy's hand slipped into mine. I'm sorry I didn't stay in the office. I squeezed her fingers. Don't be. Sometimes the best revenge is simply standing your ground. The sirens grew closer, and with them, my resolve strengthened. Megan was right about one thing, this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The temporary custody papers felt heavy in my hands as I watched Lucy sleep on Eleanor's couch. 3 weeks since Megan's midnight visit, and the world had shifted on its axis. My phone buzzed, another message from Mother, their 5th today. They're getting desperate, Eleanor said, setting down 2 cups of tea. Henry called George this morning. Apparently, Megan's lawyer contacted them. What lawyer? The paper crinkled in my tightening grip. The one claiming you kidnapped Lucy. Eleanor's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Your father threatened to support Megan's custody claim unless you see reason. A laugh escaped me, bitter as burnt coffee. Reason? Like when they sent me away because it was reasonable for Megan to have more attention. Lucy stirred, mumbling in her sleep. The bruise-like shadows under her eyes had finally started to fade, but now this. My phone lit up again, an email from Marcus. Security footage from my building's lobby, timestamped last night. I watched Megan escort our parents inside, all 3 of them talking to the doorman. My stomach turned to ice. They're building a case, I said, showing Eleanor the footage. Making it look like I'm keeping Lucy from her loving family. Then we build a better one. Eleanor pulled out a thick manila envelope. George and I have been gathering evidence since that night. Bank records, loan applications, school reports showing Lucy's frequent absences. A key turned in the front door. George entered, his face grim. Lola, we have a problem. Henry's filing for emergency guardianship of Lucy. Claims you're emotionally unstable, seeking revenge against Megan by taking her daughter. The irony burned like acid. And Megan's fraud? The stolen money? They're calling it desperate measures of a struggling single mother. He sat heavily. Your parents are backing her story. Lucy whimpered in her sleep, curling tighter around her rabbit. The sight of her, so small, so vulnerable, made something snap inside me. Call Judge Matthews, I told Eleanor. The one who helped with my emancipation. Tell her it's urgent. Lola, George started. No. I stood, my voice barely above a whisper. They took my childhood. They will not take hers. My phone rang, Mother's number. This time, I answered. We're in your lobby, she said without preamble. Security won't let us up without your approval. Please, Lola. Let's discuss this as a family. Family? The word tasted like poison. Like when you discussed sending me away. Or when you discussed letting Megan steal Lucy's future. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You're here because Megan needs something. Again. And you're enabling her. Again. She's changed. No, Mother. I've changed. I watched Lucy sleep, peaceful for the first time in weeks. Tell Megan her lawyer can contact mine. And tell Father his threats mean nothing. I have copies of every check he wrote to cover Megan's fraudulent loans. Silence crackled over the line. Then, you wouldn't. Try me. I learned from the best, after all. Megan's not the only one who knows how to play games. Eleanor touched my arm, showing me her phone. A text from Judge Matthews, bring everything tomorrow. 9 a.m. It's not too late, Mother pleaded. We can fix this. Be a family again. Through the window, I could see them in the lobby, Mother, Father, and Megan, looking up at Eleanor's apartment. The perfect family portrait, missing only their discarded daughter and stolen granddaughter. You're right, I said softly. It's not too late. For Lucy. I ended the call, turning to Eleanor. How long until the emergency custody hearing? 3 days. She squeezed my hand. Are you ready for what comes next? Lucy stirred again, this time opening her eyes. Aunt Lola. Are they here? I moved to her side, smoothing her hair. Yes, but they can't hurt you anymore. I promise. Like you promised about the Harvard sweater. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. Exactly like that. I met Eleanor's eyes over Lucy's head. Some promises you keep no matter what. Even if keeping them meant burning every bridge behind you. Even if it meant becoming the villain in their story to be the hero in hers. The war for Lucy's future had begun. And this time, I wasn't the powerless child they could discard. This time, I was ready. The courthouse bathroom mirror reflected a woman I barely recognized. 3 hours into the emergency custody hearing, and Megan's performance had been flawless, tears, remorse, promises of change. The perfect prodigal daughter, with our parents nodding supportively from the gallery. My phone vibrated, Marcus. Bad news. The offshore account's empty. She must have moved the money again. The paper towel shredded in my hands. Without the money trail, proving Megan's fraud became exponentially harder. She'd planned this, timed it perfectly. Just like when we were kids. The bathroom door creaked open. Hiding won't help your case. Megan's voice dripped false concern. Lucy needs her mother. Like she needed you when you were emptying her college fund. I turned slowly. Or when you were using her social security number for loans. Prove it. She smiled, checking her mascara in the mirror. Oh wait, you can't. Funny how evidence disappears, isn't it? What do you want, Megan? Drop the custody case. Tell the judge you overreacted. She reapplied her lipstick, perfect coral pink. I'll let you see Lucy sometimes. Maybe holidays. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, matching the ringing in my ears. You're not getting her trust fund. No. She capped her lipstick. Mother and father are very concerned about your mental state. Your obsession with revenge. The way you've poisoned Lucy against me. Her smile widened. The judge seems quite sympathetic. The door opened again. Lucy stood there, small and pale in her navy dress. Aunt Lola. They're calling us back in. Megan moved toward her daughter. Baby, come here. Lucy stepped back, pressing against my side. The gesture wasn't lost on Megan. Her mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something ugly underneath. See, she hissed. This is exactly what I mean. You've turned her against me. The courtroom felt colder when we returned. Judge Matthews' expression gave nothing away as she reviewed the new documents Megan's lawyer had submitted. Your Honor, Megan's lawyer stood, we have evidence that Miss Crawford has been systematically alienating Lucy from her mother and grandparents. Text messages, emails, witness statements. My lawyer objected, but I barely heard him. I was watching Lucy, sitting between Eleanor and George. She looked so much like I did at 12, waiting for adults to decide her fate. Furthermore, the lawyer continued, Miss Crawford's fixation on alleged financial improprieties suggests a concerning pattern of behavior. Her own grandparents had to take her in as a child due to similar unfounded accusations against her sister. The old rage rose like bile. They were rewriting history again, turning me into the villain of their story. Just like before. Your Honor, I stood, ignoring my lawyer's warning hand. I request a brief recess. In the hallway, Eleanor grabbed my arm. Lola, don't. I have to. I pulled away, heading for the courthouse steps where reporters had gathered. Megan wanted to play dirty. Fine. My phone felt heavy as I dialed Marcus's number. Release everything. Lola, think about everything, Marcus. The bank records, the loan applications, the school reports. Send it all to every news outlet waiting outside. Now. I ended the call, turning to find Lucy standing behind me. I'm sorry, she whispered. I heard what Mom said in the bathroom. My carefully constructed plans crumbled. In trying to protect Lucy, I was dragging her into exactly the kind of public spectacle I'd wanted to avoid. Your Honor. Megan's voice rang out from the courthouse doors. See? She's trying to manipulate the media. This is exactly what we've been talking about. Reporters surged forward, cameras flashing. Lucy flinched, and in that moment, I saw myself making the same mistake our parents had, putting adult vendettas above a child's well-being. Judge Matthews appeared in the doorway, her face thunderous. Miss Crawford, return to my courtroom immediately. Lucy's hand found mine as cameras continued clicking. I'm scared, she admitted. Me too, I whispered, leading her back inside. Because for the first time, I realized revenge might cost me the very thing I was fighting to protect. And Megan knew it. Her triumphant smile said everything, checkmate, little sister. Just like always. Judge Matthews' chambers felt like a tomb. The morning headlines screamed across her desk, family fortune at center of custody battle, sister versus sister. The fight for Lucy, fraud allegations rock prominent family. Explain this. The judge tapped Marcus's full report, delivered to every major news outlet yesterday. Now. Before I could speak, the door burst open. Megan stormed in, followed by our parents and both lawyers. Your Honor, this is exactly what we. Sit down, Miss Crawford. Judge Matthews' voice could have frozen hell. All of you. Now. Lucy's school records lay open on the desk, dozens of absences, sudden withdrawals, missing parent signatures. Next to them, bank statements showed a pattern of deposits and withdrawals that made my stomach turn. These records, the judge continued, show systematic financial abuse spanning 9 years. Miss Crawford, Megan, would you care to explain why your daughter's social security number appears on loans in 6 different states? Megan's mask slipped. I had no choice. Lucy's trust fund is untouchable until she's 18. Eleanor's voice cut through the room as she and George entered. We made sure of that after we saw what you did to Lola's college fund. Mother gasped. Father's face darkened. What are you talking about? The money you thought Lola spent. George's voice was steel. Megan borrowed it. With forged signatures. Just like she's been doing with Lucy's identity. That's a lie. Megan stood, desperate. They're all lying. Mother, Father, you know I wouldn't. Sit down. Judge Matthews pointed to a manila envelope. This arrived this morning. Care to explain why you were attempting to access Lucy's trust fund just yesterday? With forged guardianship papers. The room tilted. Yesterday, while she was playing grieving mother in court, she'd been trying to steal Lucy's future. Again. I needed it for Lucy, Megan's voice cracked. Everything I did was for her. Like abandoning her. The words escaped before I could stop them. Like using her identity to fund your lifestyle while she wore second-hand clothes. At least I didn't turn her against her family. No, you just sold her future to the highest bidder. Enough. Judge Matthews slammed her hand down. Where is Lucy now? With the court counselor, my lawyer answered. As requested. The judge nodded. Bring her in. I think it's time we heard from Lucy herself. Lucy entered, clutching her rabbit. Her eyes darted between Megan and me, then fixed on the judge. Lucy, Judge Matthews said gently, do you understand what's happening here? Yes. Her voice was small but steady. You're deciding if I stay with Aunt Lola or go with Mom. And what do you want? Megan leaned forward, her most winning smile in place. Baby, you know Mommy loves. Miss Crawford, one more word and I'll have you removed. The judge turned back to Lucy. Go on, sweetheart. Lucy's fingers twisted in her rabbit's fur. Last week, Mom came to my school. She said if I went with her, we'd have lots of money. That we could buy anything we wanted. Her voice shook. But she wanted me to sign some papers first. The room went deadly quiet. What kind of papers, Lucy? The judge asked. Bank papers. She said. She said if I signed them, we could get my college money now instead of later. Lucy's eyes met mine. But Aunt Lola always says education is the one thing nobody can take from you. Megan lunged forward. She's lying. Lucy, tell them you're lying. Security. Judge Matthews called sharply. As guards entered, Megan's composure shattered completely. You ungrateful little, after everything I've done. Mother, Father, tell them. But our parents sat frozen, finally seeing their golden child for what she was. Your Honor, my lawyer stood, given these revelations. Indeed. The judge's eyes were flint. Bailiff, please take Miss Crawford into custody pending charges of identity theft and attempted fraud. As for custody. She looked at Lucy, then at me. Sometimes the best revenge is living well. Don't you agree, Miss Crawford? I met Megan's eyes as the bailiff approached. For once, I didn't see my perfect older sister. I saw a stranger who'd finally run out of second chances. Lucy's hand slipped into mine as Megan was led away, our parents' stunned silence worth more than any victory speech. Sometimes justice comes not with a bang, but with the quiet triumph of truth finally heard. The Harvard acceptance letter trembled in Lucy's hands. "I got in," she whispered, then louder, "Aunt Lola, I got in." I caught her in a fierce hug, remembering a smaller version of her clutching a stuffed rabbit. Now 16, she stood nearly as tall as me, her dreams intact despite everything Megan had tried to steal. "Of course you did." Eleanor's voice cracked with pride. She and George had insisted on being here for this moment, just as they'd been there for every important milestone since the custody battle. My phone buzzed, Mother's number. The same call she made every month, seeking reconciliation, promising change. I declined it, just like always. "Mom's hearing is next week," Lucy said quietly, setting the letter down. "They want me to testify at her parole board meeting." The words hung heavy in the air. 7 years into her sentence for fraud and identity theft, Megan was making another bid for freedom. Another attempt to rewrite history. "You don't have to go," I reminded her. "I know." Lucy traced the Harvard crest on her acceptance package. "But I think I want to." "Not for her. For me." Understanding clicked into place. Lucy wasn't that frightened 9-year-old anymore, just as I was no longer the angry sister seeking revenge. We'd both grown beyond the roles Megan had tried to force us into. "I'll go with you," I offered. "We all will," George added, his hand finding Eleanor's. The parole hearing room felt smaller than I remembered. Megan sat at the front, prison pale but still beautiful, still wearing manipulation like perfume. Our parents sat behind her, older, grayer, but still choosing her side even after everything. Lucy stepped up to the podium, her voice steady. "My mother taught me something valuable," she began. "She taught me that family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about choice." Megan's perfect mask cracked slightly. "Every day, we choose who we want to be," Lucy continued. 7 years ago, my aunt chose to protect me instead of seeking revenge. She chose to build something new instead of destroying something broken. I felt Eleanor's hand slip into mine. "So today, I choose to." Lucy met Megan's eyes directly. "I choose to forgive you, Mom. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. I choose to succeed despite you, not because of you. And I choose to leave the past where it belongs, in the past." The parole board shifted, papers rustling. Mother dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. Father stared straight ahead, seeing but not understanding, just like always. "Harvard," Megan said suddenly. "You got in." Lucy nodded once. I had dreams like that once. Something genuine flickered across Megan's face, regret, perhaps, or recognition of what she'd thrown away. "I know," Lucy replied. "The difference is, I'm actually going to achieve mine." We left before the board announced their decision. It didn't matter anymore. The real victory wasn't in Megan's punishment or my revenge. It was in the young woman walking beside me, head high, future bright. Back home, Lucy pinned her acceptance letter next to my old Harvard diploma. "Think they have enough room in the economics department for another Crawford?" "They better." I smiled, watching her arrange the pins just so. "Though technically, you're a Crawford Mills now." She turned, her expression serious. "The adoption papers came through." I nodded. We'd filed them months ago, but the timing felt right to share now. "If you want to sign them." Lucy launched herself into my arms, just like she had that first night in my penthouse. "I've been your daughter since the day you chose me over revenge," she whispered. My phone buzzed again, Mother, persistent as ever. But this time, Lucy reached over and declined it for me. "Some choices," she said wisely, "you have to keep making every day." I looked at our reflection in the window, aunt and niece, guardian and ward, now mother and daughter. All by choice, not chance. Not revenge or obligation or guilt. The Harvard acceptance letter caught the late afternoon light, casting crimson shadows across our faces. Like blood, I thought, but also like sunrise. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's simply living well, loving fiercely, and letting go of the past one conscious choice at a time. Lucy smiled at our reflection, and I smiled back. We'd chosen well.